On this episode of the DTVC podcast, Scott Murphy from All 90s Action All the Time and Bloody Sam is back on, and we are continuing our march through Steven Seagal's DTV oeuvre. This time we're looking at 2004's Out of Reach. So if you're not familiar with that one, Mr. Seagal has a pen pal in a Polish orphanage, and when she disappears, he goes looking for her because she's fallen into the clutches of the nefarious Matt Schultz. So stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about that one in just a little bit. Next week, Chris the Brain Kavinsky from Bulletproof Action is back on, and get your caffeine shirts ready because we are looking at the Dolph Lundgren Die Hard in a School DTV classic Detention. So that'll be next week. I think it's our first time. Well, I shouldn't say I think it is our first time talking Dolph with Chris. So a lot of fun there. If you haven't seen Detention in a while, I mean it was a staple of like USA and Spike TV in the early mid 2000s. You check it out before the episode next week. It is on different streamers. Another fun conversation there. So stay tuned for that next week. Then in 2 weeks' time, Ty from Comeuppance is on for his monthly spot. We are looking at two from Ruby Rose. We're going to be looking at Stowaway, which also has Frank Grillo, so we'll be firing up the Grillo in 2 weeks. And then Vanquish, which also has Morgan Freeman and Oscar winner Nick Vallelonga. If you're familiar with him, he wrote the Green Book, but he does his share of these direct-to-video movies, so it's always kind of funny to see him in something like this, knowing that he also won an Oscar as a screenwriter. But anyway, that'll be in 2 weeks' time for Ty's monthly spot on the podcast. And then in terms of DTVC Extra, I think that is going to be done for the time being. So you never know. At some point, I might just, the spirit might move me and I might record something. But for right now, that is going to be done for the time being. I am looking to get a new YouTube video up, hopefully sometime this month. So we'll see. The idea in mind, I was thinking I'm doing the end fight in, was it Into the Sun? I think is the name of it, the Seagal movie, one that we've covered here as well, that Scott Murphy and I have covered in the past. So Into the Sun, it has that bonkers ending with voodoo and all kinds of stuff going on there. So I'm going to try to do that one. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get that one in hopefully sometime this month. And then on the site last weekend, we did Midnight Warrior. That was our PM flick for the month of April. That is one that I covered on the PM podcast with John Cross as the host, and of course, Chris the Brain was on that one as well. So you can check that one out in the archives of the PM Entertainment podcast. But that was another really fun episode. You should be subscribed to that podcast anyway. Hopefully, you've already even heard it. But anyway, so I was catching up on that one, doing the review last weekend. This weekend, I am going to do a little Bruno Mattei with some Brent Huff. I'm going to be looking at Cop Game. Cop Game is one that I've been meaning to do for a long time. So I did watch it this past week, and it's like, let's get a review of that one up. So one of the things that was very disappointing about that movie is there were a lot of scenes in offices that were supposed to be U.S. government offices, but not a single presidential portrait. The closest thing we got to any of the things that we kind of collect, or I shouldn't say that I collect. So there's no McDonald's, no presidential portrait, but we did get a Chinatown. We had the Chinatown in Manila that was being passed off, I guess, as the Chinatown in Saigon. I don't know. You could see very clearly that it's Manila. I got the sense that Bruno Mattei just didn't care making that movie. But anyway, I don't want to give away the review too much. That'll be this weekend, so you can look for that review this weekend. And then in terms of guest spots on other podcasts, this past week you may have heard Will from Exploding Helicopter. His April Fool's episode was the exploding takeoff and landing plane or jet. I can't remember exactly what he called it, but we looked at Red Dawn for the April Fool's episode, so you can check that out. I kind of went in a little bit hard on it, but it kind of fit the times, I think, to go in on it and just kind of. But I mean, there's still some fun moments in it. I mean, the opening scene where like the military, whatever it is, the invading force comes in and like hoses down the high school and the kids like hanging out the window. That's so beautiful. I was laughing out loud anyway when I saw it. And again, as I mentioned on the podcast, it's the only movie where you're going to get a chance to have Leah Thompson wearing a beret and toting an AK-47. So it does, doesn't get much better than that, or an assault rifle, I guess is what you could say. But anyway, check me out on the Exploding Helicopter podcast. I think that's kind of everything. Why don't we get into the episode? Oh, did I forget to mention that I have a novel out, Mark in Sales? Yeah, you could check that out. The link is in the podcast description. And if you don't want to buy that one, I've got other books. Mark in Sales is the sixth novel that I've published. Plus, I have my short action novel, Bainbridge. So, yeah, you can go. The link is in the podcast description to my authors page. You can pick up any of those. It's a great way to support the site, great way to support what we do here. Plus, you get a book out of it. So, what's wrong with that? You can either put the book on your shelf, or if you've got Kindle, it'll just sit on your computer or your tablet or something. But either way, I always appreciate any support that anybody wants to give us. So definitely check out one of my novels there. I always appreciate it. All right, now that I'm in rambling mode, why don't we have John Cross from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song? And when we come back, Scott Murphy from All 90s Action All the Time is on, and we're going to be looking at Out of Reach.
Recording is on.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I am joined once again by Scott Murphy from All 90s Action All the Time, and now the Sam Peckinpah podcast as well. Welcome back, Scott.
Thank you very much for having me back. I kind of forgot the little message that comes on with this particular recording program. We're not recorded in a while. I forgot that. I forgot that voice. The recording is on, which is great stuff. But yes, thank you very much for having me back. And yes, in the interim, I have started a new podcast that is called Bloody Sam, a Sam Peckinpah fan podcast. So We've just published 3 episodes. Episode 3 went up not that long ago. So we've covered his first 3 movies so far, which are Deadly Companion, Ride the High Country, and Major Dundee. And we've got another 11 films to go because I'm just covering his feature films. I'm not covering his TV work or the one TV movie he did called Noon Wine. Not covering that. So just as 14 theatrically released feature films.
Nice. And was it the second movie that TV's Frank commented on your post on Blue Sky?
The Ride the High Country, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I saw that because I saw on Blue Sky, because I follow Bloody Sam, and I saw you responding to something which is gotta love TV's Frank. I think he's a big Peckinpah fan.
Yeah. Well, I'm discovering a lot of people are quite big Peckinpah fans. I thought because I even though he's got like biographies and documentaries about him and stuff like that, I still think he's kind of like one of the kind of underrated. I mean, I guess he's kind of a New Hollywood director, even though he predates New Hollywood, but and is a lot older than the kind of New Hollywood. The people you associate most with the New Hollywood, like Coppola, Scorsese, Spielberg, Lucas, all those kind of people who are De Palma, who were born in kind of late 30s, early 40s, whereas Peckinpah was born in 1925, and his film career started earlier, pre the dawn of New Hollywood in the late 60s. But he kind of fits in that mold though as well because of Wild Bunch and it's Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia and stuff like that. And I always thought of him as kind of one of the more slightly underrated, or because he's there's elements of his filmmaking which are very problematic now. So kind of slept on more. But yeah, no. As I do it, I'm discovering that there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love for them as well as like his legacy being complicated, and we discussed that a lot about his legacy being complicated.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah, he's kind of like one of those bridge directors that
Yeah,
sort of bridge that era from the new Hollywood to sort of what we consider, I guess, what the classic Hollywood. Yeah, it's kind of that era that Robert Evans was sort of banking on, right? He was sort of
I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right. And I guess like there is some kind of like people who are associated with New Hollywood who are a bit older, yeah, like Arthur Penn, who directed Bonnie and Clyde, and like Robert Altman, who was also born in 1925, and yeah. So I guess like there is a few of them that are kind of bridge directors who are a little bit different from like who are a little bit different from the kind of the Hollywood brats, the new Hollywood directors, like I say, like the Spielbergs and the Scorseses and the Coppolas and stuff like that, who are often coming. Well, they did like early Corman work, but like they went directly into film, whereas like Altman and Peckinpah like came up through television and did like just episodic television for a bunch of time, and then ended up in film. So, or just have a just a little bit different.
yeah. Another one I think of like that is Richard Donner, who
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah,
He similarly, much like Peckinpah, because Donner was worked on a lot of Western shows,
yeah.
like Peckinpah. So yeah, Donner's a similar kind of story. Yeah.
Yeah, because he also, I mean, we think of him as kind of being one of the new Hollywood, because obviously he did things like Superman that were big deal, or Goonies, stuff like that. But he like when you look at his bio, you're like, oh, he was born 1930. Like, oh wow, he was that. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought he was that old. But yeah, Peckinpah's another one like that, where you're like you think like you said, you think of like the Wild Bunch and some of that stuff. You think, oh, okay, yeah, he's sort of in that milieu, but no, he was also earlier than that too. And yeah, it is interesting too, kind of what the difference in that age does. That it's that difference in 10 or 15 years can change sort of what what you come up as, like as because those new Hollywood types, they were going to the movie theaters, and like someone like a George Lucas, he was going to watch like serials that something like Batman was making fun of, right? Because it was like and he was liking those kinds of things. I know, I think of Batman, I'm talking about the old show Batman that was
Yeah. The '60s, the Adam West show. Yeah.
yeah, and he was like, "No, I want to remake Flash Gordon in space. That's what I want to do with Star Wars." And yeah, and or Spielberg's another one, who kind of grew up with that kind of stuff, and was like, "Yeah, I want to make Jaws. I want to make like my a Bird Eye Gordon movie, on the big screen, make it big and crazy." And like a Peckinpah or a Donner or one of those types, probably like, I don't know. I'll say that they would probably have a grudging respect for Burt I. Gordon, or for those serials of the past, like the Flash Gordon, stuff like that. But I don't think they would want to mimic them, right? They wouldn't think like, oh, I want to try to remake that kind of thing. And so there's that piece that they don't quite have, that the new Hollywood ones had, of that sort of, I don't know, because they were younger. That it is a little bit interesting when you watch them. There's like a little something in the DNA that's a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely because they might kind of maybe even kind of look down upon that. Yeah, I guess there is that little bit of difference, and that's the same. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the same you see in each generation, where like there's things that were maybe not valued in one generation that is being reworked and kind of redone in the next generation. It's a bit like the kind of like, if you go like a step forward, it's a bit like a lot of the new Hollywood directors probably would have looked down upon a lot of the kind of grindhouse stuff that came out in the 70s, and then that was kind of reworked and kind of reshaped and elevated by like like your Tarantinos and stuff like that. So like it's this constant cycle of that kind of thing.
Yeah, because like we talked about on your podcast on All 90s Action All the Time, we talked about Albert Pyun with Adrenaline, the Fear of the Russian. So he's like another 10 years younger than the new Hollywood guys. He was born in the mid 50s, early to mid 50s. So he was like growing up watching like those, invasion movies and things like that on TV. And so he would have been like one of the earliest generations seeing that stuff on television. And then, of course, going to the theater as well. But that's also, I think, kind of plays a part in some of his stuff where it's like you almost kind of see it in a small screen kind of way, with his invasion movies and stuff like that. And then also, like the Frank Henenlotters and those directors that also kind of grew up in that, going to the Grindhouse theater to see those movies in the 60s and 70s, but also as a kid seeing this stuff on TV, wanting to put it all together, Fred Olin Ray, Jim Wynorski, a couple other ones that I think of like that, obviously they're not at the level of the new Hollywood guys, right? Like they're Wynorski's not winning any Oscars.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, like, if you are like, but there is, I mean, like it's an interesting one because there's some of these directors who made just kind of like you say, like, something like a Fred Olin Ray, mainly, respect on Fred Olin Ray, but he mainly makes trashy movies, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like they're often fun, but they're not like, there's not a lot there in terms of things to engage your brain or social commentary or whatever. But I think there is a difference between something like that. Again, no disrespect to Fred Olin Ray. There's Fred Olin Ray movies I really enjoy, but I would say there is a little bit of difference between that and somebody like a Frank Henenlotter or a Larry Cohen, which on the surface just the movie's just kind of pure trash, but digging underneath, there is a little bit of social commentary. There is a little bit of more meat there, and if you're looking for that, Frankenhooker, silly movie, but also there's commentary there if you're looking for it.
Oh no, there's plenty.
Same with Larry Cohen and the stuff, and things like that.
Maniac
Again,
Cop.
on the surface, just trash, but there's a lot going on there. If you're looking for that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, you think like a Maniac Cop or
Yeah,
a lot of No, that's a good point.
No, Larry Cohen was great for that. Larry Cohen was a great writer for kind of giving you it's like I guess it's like giving you a spoonful of sugar with your medicine kind of thing. I've been like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna give you blood and boobs and stuff, but I'm also gonna if you're listening, I'm also going to give you some of my thoughts on the world and how things are kind of fucked up.
Right. Well, because to your point about Frankenhooker, there's a lot in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, Frankenhooker is genuinely a great movie.
Yeah.
And there's genuinely a lot going on there. About I like it kind of because it even before we had the term kind of incel, it's there's a lot there about fragile masculinity and all that kind of stuff, and there's it packs a lot in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right, and I mean the ending is so perfect, and it's the kind of thing that I think if like an incel or 4chan or something like that was watching Frankenhooker, the twist at the end of that would probably be enough to turn their they'd be the rug would get pulled out from under them, right? If they're as they're watching the movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing makes sense to them along those lines, and then you get to the end, and it's like so not that at all. And I almost feel like it's the only way that Henenlotter could have ended that movie, but it still works so perfectly.
Yeah, I think so because I think I think the ending, it's a fun movie, and it'd probably still be a fun movie, but I think the ending reframes the film because there's certain moments where you kind of maybe wince, if you are of a progressive stripe, you maybe wince a little bit and go this is maybe a little dodgy or this is maybe a little sexist or whatever, but it kind of reframes the film of being actually all along this is. Because there is a way you can frame the movie up until that point where you're thinking, oh, this film's a bit misogynistic. Yeah. And then it kind of reframes the entire movie, that ending, of being okay, so we were never supposed to root for this guy, really. we're supposed to root for her. Like, I mean, which is what we end up doing anyway. And you want that ending, but you don't know if you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And then you do get it, and you're like, that is joyous.
That's a great point. I wonder, as we're talking about this kind of thing now, I wonder how much, with movies being on streamers and the fact that people turn them off all the time and all these kinds of things, I wonder, like, how many filmmakers would trust their audience enough to get it, as they're going through this. And because you do, again, if you're Frank Henenlotter, you're thinking like, well, somebody's going to sit in the theater and watch this and watch it through its entirety, or they'll catch it on cable, they'll rent it, and they'll watch it in its entirety. But now, people, they play on their phones, they switch things off and all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, if the opening part of the movie, you think that this is going to kind of be some kind of incel misogynist kind of thing, you might turn it off. And whereas, when the movie was made, that really wasn't a concern as much, that people would, they're going in wanting a low budget horror movie, but then they, the fact that it turns like that is perfect.
I do think we've kind of gone off track already, but like I do think that there is like I think there's like a fear. I think there is maybe a fear of like making your intentions clear.
Yeah.
Like making your message of your film, like not every movie has to have a message, obviously, but like if it does, like making it kind of clear from early on, and maybe it is the streaming thing, maybe it is like people looking at their phones, but I think like also it is like in terms of like internet culture, the kind of things that people have like gravitated towards, and particularly movies like American Psycho and Fight Club, that have kind of garnered kind of like toxic reputations because it has been championed by the very people that those movies were attempting to satirize and make fun of. And so I think maybe there's a kind of thing of like, we got to make things a bit more literal because like, because these films are being championed by, and it's the same with even movies like The Wolf of Wall Street. It's the same thing of like, the target of the satire becomes a large part of the fan base of the film, which must be infuriating for the filmmaker. Well, maybe it's not because they're getting all the money, but like, it's a very successful film. But I think as a creator, that's probably disappointing that like to see your artwork co-opted by the very people that you've been making fun of. Although it can be funny at the same time, because like it can be like, I mean, I'm constantly amazed on the internet. I'm constantly amazed that there is still like even up until like the 2024 election or whatever in the US, there was still people who were like under the delusion that the machine that Rage Against the Machine were raging against was on the left or something. Like there was still like right wing people being like, yeah, Rage Against the Machine, they're totally my band, they're totally on my side of things. And you're like, did you? And it's the same with like Green Day as well. It's like, did you ever like listen to the lyrics or pay any attention to anything? Like because they're obsessed with like kind of like they've gone woke now, and it's like they always were. That literally have nothing has changed in their songs, their lyrics, their like nothing, literally nothing. Like I can see the kind of borderline people where you can kind of convince yourself that like, oh, he's not left wing or whatever, like the classic kind of Bruce Springsteen example. But of like, oh, like I can understand the Born in the USA kind of confusion or whatever of like getting that one wrong. But like with Rage Against the Machine and Green Day and stuff, I'm just like, I'm baffled. I'm baffled that you've invested in that and not realized that they are, well, in the case of Green Day, very liberal. In the case of Rage Against the Machine, like actively socialist. Like I don't understand. But that, yeah, again, massive side tangent.
No, you're absolutely right. The funny one that I actually discovered was Limp Bizkit. I'm obviously not a fan of Limp Bizkit. I should say. Just get that out there right now. It's like one of those
Yeah.
things. Like I can't have it be like lingering on the podcast that I was a fan. But they're really left wing, and a lot of like right wing, bro types are big Limp Bizkit fans and have no idea that like Fred.
I guess that kind of makes sense to me
Yeah.
because of like the persona of Fred Durst. Like the kind of like the way he comes across is very kind of frat
Right.
broy.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand the like Limp Bizkit thing. I know that they like because and so I know that they kind of get lumped in with those kind of other kind of right wing metal favorites like Avenged Sevenfold and Five Finger Death Punch, and who are I believe quite conservative. So they got that one right. Like in terms of the conservatives going towards them. So yeah. But no. I kind of get the Limp Bizkit one more, just because of the way Fred Durst comes across. He comes across as that kind of knuckle dragging kind of frat dude bro kind of guy.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? It's like it makes sense that they would make that mistake because, like, to your point, because of how he was. But like Rage Against the Machine, it's like, and it's not even like, I mean, it's like if you just watch one of their videos on MTV, but I guess maybe because of the whole populist thing, like when you see Rage Against the Machine with Michael Moore, who, like, conservatives have this idea that Michael Moore is like a billionaire with like a pool that he that's filled with the blood of children and all of this stuff when he's just Michael Moore. But I mean, one of the videos for one of their songs, I think it was during the 2000 election at that time. They shut down Wall Street in the video. You see Michael Moore getting arrested in the video.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Sleep Now in the Fire video.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. Where they're on the steps of Wall Street. Yeah, I don't know how you watch that video and you feel like these people,
Right.
These people conservative.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a great point. But I guess like circling back to Peck and Pucks, I think the way we kind of got off track is the fact that Peck and Paw is part of this sort of this lineage of directors, right? That we kind of see, and it is kind of fascinating to see how these different age cohorts, do movies. So it is going to be interesting to see as you go through the Peck and Paw movies with your series. Sort of how those movies progress, especially as time goes on. And like you said, sort of putting them in today's context as well, is because, again, being a director, especially at that time, I think being a director for a long time was like a kind of I don't know, this like macho kind of thing as well. And I think that that new Hollywood thing, they have like a different machismo that they bring into it as well. They're sort of, they're not, Henry Ford or, John Ford with the eye patch, right? Like they're,
That's true. That's true. Or they're not. Yeah. No, that's true. And they're not quite the same. They're not quite like John Huston, hunting elephants in Africa or whatever the fuck John Huston was doing. He just doing all that kind of like quote unquote manly man shit. I don't know why John Huston's always the first one that comes to mind. I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's so many famous stories of him, like
I know,
like hunting and drinking and adventuring, kind of like doing stuff.
Well, what was the one story that I think they were making? I think it was Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and it was running over time. And Bogart needed to get back. I don't know if it was because he needed to get married, like him and Laura McCall. Something was up, but he needed to get back. And Houston was mad at him. He grabbed his nose and started twisting it to like it was like, it's like, can you imagine a director? I mean, no director should be doing that, period. John Huston shouldn't have been twisting Humphrey Bogart's nose back then. Like nobody should be doing that.
No,
but
nobody should do that.
Yeah.
And if people have probably seen maybe some of his acting appearances in like Chinatown and stuff like that. John Huston, quite a large man. Yes. I imagine being grabbed by John Huston, quite an intimidating experience.
Yes. And Peck and Paw is sort of right in that next tier, after the John Hustons, maybe the John Fords, William Wilders, Elia Kazan. Yeah, I
Yeah.
almost feel like Peckinpah. I don't know if Peckinpah would be after Elia Kazan. I think so, right? I think time wise, he would kind of.
Yeah, because Kazan's like, I guess he's like most famous for like his kind of like 50s
That's
films.
right. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I guess. So like yeah, so I mean like Peckinpah doesn't make his debut until 61.
right.
So like yeah, in terms of like when they came to the fore in Hollywood terms, yeah, Peckinpah definitely.
Yeah, so I guess it's a. I don't know if this is a hard transition into the work of Steven
It's
Seagal.
always a hard transition with Seagal.
It is for sure, for sure. And it's funny because when we were talking about adrenaline, fear the rush on all '90s action all the time, and I guess I'm giving a bit of a sense of how the sausage is made, or maybe
Mm.
the vegan sausage, right? We're mixing the seitan and the vital wheat gluten or whatever. I don't know, but anyway, but. Adrenaline Fear the Rush is a movie that had like some dubbing and stuff like that because it had been edited and reshot and done stuff like that. And it just feels like, again, that's par for the course with a Seagal movie. So it's like when we're getting into this movie here, Out of Reach, that we're talking about today, it's just like, you just know it's just going to be this collection of all of these things. And it's always kind of funny when you watch something like Adrenaline Fear the Rush and you see elements of the Seagal movie, but it's not like a full-on Seagal movie. It's like there's still an attempt to make a movie, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but if you know what I mean.
Oh no, I definitely know what you mean because like um uh because we hit the ground running with this film in terms of the old bingo card because like this film starts with an exchange of pen pal letters and we get footage of Seagal's character walking through the forest that is not Seagal. It is a body double, and then we get narration of his pen pal letter response to the little girl he's writing to, and it's not Seagal's voice. So we start the movie, and Seagal's character. It's not Seagal's physical presence, and it's not his voice either. But it is supposed to be Seagal's character. Amazing! What a great start to a film.
Yes, exactly. No, the body double is Dion Ristoff, who now goes by Ristoff Dion on IMDb, but he's like the longtime stunt double. He did a lot of work doing stunt work for Millennium Films and the
Yeah.
Boaz, Davidson, Avila, that crew. But he's kind of known as the Seagal stunt double. So we get him there, and then we get
Also, like I mean, at least the Seagal body double looks vaguely similar to Seagal, probably a little more slimmed down, but like vaguely similar to Seagal. The voice double, nothing like him. Not even slightly. Not even trying to do an impersonation. Just doing whatever that guy's voice is.
so that voice, this is going to be kind of a deep cut on what that voice sounds like. There's a podcast I listen to called the Bravo Docket, and it's essentially these two lawyers in the United States. They met through Reddit chats about different Bravo reality stars getting into legal trouble. And they would comment on these things, and they decided, hey, we both love reality TV, and we both are lawyers, so we're learned about the law. What if we do a podcast? And one of them has a husband who, from time to time, they'll read like legal filings that involve men and women talking, and she'll employ her husband to read the male parts. And his voice, when he's reading the male parts, sounds like the dubbed over version of Seagal in this movie.
Yeah, right. Okay, that is a deep cut. I've never heard of it. So like yeah, definitely a deep cut. But no, it is quite like a. I mean, but it makes sense to me in the sense of like it's quite a nice voice. It's kind of like a radio voice. Like to make it an American reference, a kind of voice I could assume that was like on PBS or something.
Right.
Kind of like narrating a documentary or something like that. That's a kind of voice. Nothing like Seagal's voice, but a kind of like. And this is when we entered the Vietnam War, and like.
yes, exactly. And I mean the idea that this guy is doing that Seagal's character somehow signs up for some pen pal program with orphans in Poland.
Uh-huh.
That's we're supposed to believe that and accept that. And I don't know where that comes from, but that's and so full
Oh
disclosure.
well, we're also supposed to accept that he's an ex CIA agent turned animal sanctuary owner.
Right,
I don't know.
right,
Yeah.
and so yeah, he saves injured animals in the forest. It's again, it's like the Seagal is the greatest guy ever bingo card, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
writing to
He's kind to all the women, children, animals. He's the great. He's the most. He's the shiniest of all the white knights
exactly.
in the movies. I mean, obviously we've discussed at length before what a terrible person he is in real life. But like in the movies, he's certainly in this era. We get into a later era where he stops being that. But like in this era, he's still presenting himself as basically just the greatest guy who knows all the languages and all the cultures, and is a man of all the people, and as well as the animals and nature and the environment, and just an incredible, almost Jesus-like figure, like that's what we get from these films.
No, exactly. It, I was trying to think like so according to the trivia on this movie was supposed to be something else, and it's another one of these ones that was
Yes.
recut, re-put together, kind of like Attack Force. I don't know what the something else could have been for this movie. I don't even know what they changed.
I have no idea what the original. Yeah, because apparently that's what, because like, obviously, as well as not doing his reverse angles or whatever, like Seagal like never comes back for any reshoots or whatever. So yeah, so apparently that's what led to like a lot of the voice dubbing and stuff like that. But yeah, like you, I was kind of back. At least with Attack Force, there was like a clear line. Like when I read like what that was like supposed to be about, and like and it was just kind of a horror movie, and then I think it just went from bit like, if my memory serves correctly, I think it just went from being like vampires to like they were aliens now, or whatever,
Right,
or is it
right.
the other way around? Like anyway, anyway, there was like, when I read up on it, it like made sense what the original film was going to be. Um, but this one, it's a complete mystery. I was like, okay, but like, so what was the intention then? Like, you know, and what was there no pen pal element? And then if there wasn't, like, is it just how he's just saving random children in Poland? How did he get to Poland? Like, I don't. I mean, as clumsy and clunky as it is that he has this pen pal relationship with this Polish girl, and apparently has a psychic link with her that kind of knows that she's in trouble, because he's like, oh, I've not heard from her a little while. It's not like, because she's like 14, and it's like, he's not like, oh, I guess 14-year-olds can be a bit flaky. Maybe they've moved on with their life or whatever. Like he's immediately like, no, she's in deathly trouble. I know this for a fact. I'm getting on the next plane to Poland, which seems like a stretch, but I mean, he is right. Like, cause, obviously he has magical powers in all these films. But yeah, in terms of leaps of logic, it's quite the. I mean, that is a pole jump of logic, I think.
Well, because what happens is, I think, is that doesn't the orphanage send him a letter saying,
Yes.
right, and it's like, oh, she can't talk to you anymore, she's going away or whatever, and he's like, okay, that doesn't sound right. So you know what I'm going to
Yes.
do? I'm going to get at it. I'm going to go check it out. Yeah, maybe I should do a quick synopsis. Maybe I'll do give people an idea, and it's going to be an interesting synopsis. And then we'll kind of get into these things, but
Mm.
the basic premise is that Seagal is having a pen pal relationship with an orphan in Poland. She gets picked up by Matt Schultz, who is running. He's running a trafficking ring. When I reviewed this on the site back in 2007, I thought it was a child pornography ring. I think it was just because of the cameras. I think I wasn't paying attention well enough, and the girls were on camera.
Right. Yeah, because he do the kind of the quote unquote model shoots.
Right, exactly, and the videos and everything. Yeah, so I think that's how I mistook that. But yeah, so when at the same time, Seagal's a former CIA agent, and the CIA guys show up to kill him because they have to, right? I guess
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that being a part of the CIA. That like if you're in the CIA, it's like the mob, right? The only way out is to quit, right? You're to work
Yeah,
as
yeah,
crime.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, you just die in some way. I don't know. Yeah, apparently he must know some super secret state secrets that need to die with him or something. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you know, because I know you have me on for like just to point out when British actors are in things. Um, so one of the CIA agents, his friend Lewis, who's the first guy he talks to, and kind of is like, kind of gives him the heads up that he's going to be, um, you know, to like move out of town or whatever. He initially comes out. He's played by Robbie G, who's a British actor, who is most famous internationally probably for his role in as Vinny in Snatch.
oh yeah,
But in the 90s was in two groundbreaking shows. One, it was called Desmond's. And Desmond's was a sitcom set in a barber shop and is kind of groundbreaking in the UK because it was kind of one of the first sitcoms to like focus on like a black family that was just like a normal middle class family. So it's kind of the equivalent of like it had the equivalent effect in the UK as the Cosby Show had in the US. And he was also in a sketch show called The Real McCoy, which had an all black cast and is kind of like I guess kind of like the UK equivalent of like In Living Color. So he was in two kind of groundbreaking comedy shows in the 90s. I don't know what he's up to now, but like I think that's what he's still best known for in back in the UK. So I thought I'd drop that in because I know you like me pointing out. Oh, that's a British person. I've seen them on telly back when I was growing up in the 90s.
that's perfect. It looks like he's doing the Paddington movies now.
Oh yes, right. That's right. He wasn't there. He's still working. Good times. Right. So yes, that's right. I've seen the first two, but I've not seen the third one, Paddington in Peru. And I got to say, I was kind of on the fence. I thought that I went into them thinking people are too excited about this. People are too hyped. These films, I think, are probably overrated. And then I watched Paddington and Paddington 2, and I was like, people are absolutely correct. These movies are amazing.
They are good. Have to check them out. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the books as a kid, the Paddington Bear books. I think there might have been a cartoon that was here in America as well. It wasn't until I went to England that I discovered like that's a part of London, right? Paddington, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And also, connecting it to our recording for Adrenaline Fear the Rush. I can't remember if we said this off record or if it was on record, but Paddington and Paddington 2 has a cameo, a small role for Jim Broadbent. Who is an actor that I've been telling people is actually secretly in every British movie that's been made in the last 45 years. He's everywhere.
Exactly. No, I don't think we mentioned that. That's a good point. So yeah, that's a good catch there. But yeah, so I guess Seagal, he goes to Poland to figure out what's happening. He meets a beautiful detective. So we can kind of put her in the list of names of like Ava Pope. I was trying to think of who some of the other ones were. Sarah Buxton, and Today You Die.
That's true. And as far as I'm aware, kind of reading up on her name's like Agnieszka Wagner or Wagner. I don't know how Polish people pronounce the W's. If it's the same as Germans or if it's not. But so maybe it's Wagner or maybe it's Wagner.
Yeah, that's good. Wagner. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about the Polish language. But anyway, as far as I can gather, she is like somebody who, like, if a Polish person was on this podcast, be like, I remember watching her on television because I think she's done a number of kind of film and TV projects in Poland and is a known something of a known quantity there.
Yeah, and so she shows up and she kind of helps him, and then he finds the boy that was the friends with Irena. Irena's the girl who has been captured
Mm-hmm.
by Matt Schultz, and he shows him some, like some hieroglyphs or whatever that she wrote that, tells him that, okay, yes, she's been kidnapped, or she's whatever, she's not in the best shape. So they investigate, and it's kind of this like game of cat and mouse that doesn't make a lot of sense, as Seagal's like uncovering this whole thing, while at the same time Schultz is doing his bad guy kind of stuff. And then they kind of just meet at the end in this really big, like, Highlander-esque sword fight at the end.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll definitely discuss that more. But yeah, I mean, like, and like you say, it's this kind of cat and mouse thing, and then like the CIA agents who are after Seagal at one point, kind of it's all kind of confusing,
Right.
because there's like the lead CIA agent who is after Seagal, as well as our friend Robbie G, who plays Lewis Morton, is this guy called Agent Shepard, and he meets up with Faisal, and we are initially, it seems like they're kind of in cahoots, but then we find out they're kind of not in cahoots. That Agent Shepard is just like, I don't care what you're doing, I only care about killing, Seagal's character, who's called William Lansing, which is possibly a reference to the fact that Seagal was born in Lansing, Michigan, or maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, so he's, and like it's weird. I mean, like, the Agent Shepard thing is weird because, like, he is still like his like. We don't know, like, how corrupt he is. I mean, obviously he's quite corrupt because, like, he's discovered a human trafficking ring, and he's like, I don't care about that. You go on with your business. I just care about killing Seagal. So obviously, but he doesn't end up like in cahoots with him. He doesn't end up trying to move in on the business or anything like that. So like, I don't it's weird. It's weird the lines, and also, like, I do have a question, like, because, like, I am, like, I've seen this movie twice now, and I'm concerned that maybe I have fallen asleep and missed a bit. So I want to ask you a question, Matt. There is a scene in the movie where Faisal, played by Matt Schultz, as you said, meets up with a bloke called Mr. Elgin, who's played by Nick Brimble, who we previously saw in Submerged, and is another British actor. You might remember him playing Little John in Robin Hood Prison Thieves. He's been in a bunch of stuff. And Mr. Elgin seems like he's kind of like the boss of bosses. He seems like he's like Faisal's boss. And it feels like either, one or two things will happen. Either Mr. Elgin will get frustrated and try and get rid of Faisal, and maybe there's confrontation there, or Faisal will kind of like pull the rug under from Mr. Elgin and bump him off, and then himself become the boss of bosses. However, as far as I'm aware, Mr. Elgin just appears in that one scene to tell Faisal off and doesn't appear again.
Right. No, he
doesn't affect the plot at all. Like, it seems like it's going to be a subplot. There's going to be some power battle, whatever. Like, why introduce it? That's my question to you, Matt.
No.
Does it affect the plot? Does anything else happen with the Mr. Elgin subplot? Did I fall asleep? And also, if I didn't fall asleep, why is it there?
Right. Because I think the idea is supposed to be that he was putting pressure on Schultz's character to, correct, I guess, to make more money or something. But you're right. Like, it's as if, I wonder. So this is my guess on it, just to see if there's a reason for this. I wonder if Brimble was brought on to make the original version of this movie, and he's got more scenes in the film, and he's getting his whatever 50 5-figure paycheck for his 1 or 2 days in Poland to shoot the movie. But I wonder if there's something in the contract that says like he has to be in the movie somewhere. And when they were re-editing it, they edited out his character, but realized like, oh well, we can't get rid of him completely, so he's got to have this one scene in the film, and that's it. I guess they couldn't do like the Kevin Costner and the Big Chill kind of thing where he's just completely edited out altogether. That's my best guess on it. I don't know.
Oh, okay, so you think maybe it's some sort of contractual stipulation? I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. Because we have no idea what the original intention of the film is, because like nothing online describes that. It just says like it was originally going to be something else.
Right.
A mystery as to what that something else was, but because I couldn't find anything. But yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. There was some sort of like no. You've got to have you can't take out all the Brimble. You've got to have at least some Brimble in there. And they were like, okay, kind of doesn't make sense that we now have a subplot that isn't really in the film anymore. But sure, we'll have some Brimble. We'll have one scene of Brimble.
Right, because one of the things I'm wondering about with this movie, and there's a ton of things to talk about in here, but there's that end sword fight scene, and one of the things in that end sword fight scene is that Seagal seems really committed to the whole samurai movie bit. Especially at the end when he charges at Schultz and he keeps the pose for a long period of time, and I wonder if Seagal went back and saw how this movie was cut and completely edited, and his character was dubbed over and all that stuff. And I wonder if there was a part of him too that was like, "Hey, I tried in this movie, and this is what happened to it. Why should I even bother trying anymore?" And yes, I'm probably giving Seagal more credit than I should.
Probably.
But it was interesting that he was committed to the bit at the end of this movie, and it still kind of ended up how it ended up.
I mean, he's not. I mean, yes, in the final battle he's committed, but I wouldn't say like he's particularly driven throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's giving all that much effort in other parts of the movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's still quite a lot of like body double work and stuff like that. Maybe the body double work never gets quite to the hilarious level of something like Shadow Man, where I'm not convinced he's. I think actually Seagal's only in about 15 minutes of Shadow Man. There's so much. I mean, like, no wonder Imelda Staunton was mad. The fuck is he? Isn't this a movie? I don't know what's going on. You're probably, to be fair, you probably got off the hook. It was probably a more pleasant experience that he wasn't on the set that much. But yeah, so he never gets to quite that level. But there is a lot here. But you're right. He does commit to the sword fight at the end, and the sword fight at the end is pretty fun. And it's quite. It's quite dramatically shot. It's in this kind of like large kind of palatial kind of place. It's kind of like white kind of marble looking floors and stuff like that. It's kind of like it looks pretty cool. And like, I mean, I guess since we're here at the sword fight and stuff, I guess we can jump on like one of the big talking points of the film, which is Matt Schultz's performance as Faisal, and he's really kind of what makes the movie. He's one of those villains who in his every action is villainous, and like at no point does he try and there's no point where he tries to like pretend that he's not a villain, which which would make sense in his business, particularly when he's going to the orphanage. Um, and then but no, he says everything, like he's hatching an evil plan. Like every line is like, I'm doing this now. And like it's when he first goes to the orphanage and he's like picking out the kids that he's like, I'm going to give you a better life, and I'm going to and handing them the rose, and he does it in just like the most creepy, oily manner you've ever seen. And like you would think that as soon as you got that rose, you would just run. You would just run because you were like, I mean, this guy is not like he doesn't have red flags. He is made of red flags. He is all top, like top to tail red flags. You were just immediately on site. Just his blonde dye job alone kind of marks him out as like, this guy, bad dude. And then everything else on top. It's just like, wow, okay, gotta get the fuck away from this guy. It's tremendous though, as like watching it as a viewer. It is like one of the most entertaining of the films. Just how like it's transparently evil this character is.
Yeah, it's like even the big black leather coat too, right? Like that's just
Oh yeah.
right. Like you wonder, like, did Matt Schultz pick that coat out specifically to be creepier? Um, it's like, and I think this is one of the things with these movies is that you can't always get, I don't know what happened with Matt Schultz if he stopped making, because he kind of fades out. I think he's got something in post production now, but he kind of his production dwindled quite a bit as he got into the 2010s. I know he did the fifth Fast and Furious movie, so that was his kind of his
Oh
exit
yeah,
from
yeah,
that
yeah.
series.
He came back for that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's the other thing too, is that it's kind of interesting to think about 2004 with Matt Schultz, because he in a way had gotten bigger than the Fast and Furious movie that he started. Because he was, transporter baddie. He ended up going in to make Torque, which was kind of like I don't know what to call it, like a self-aware parody of Fast and Furious, or the Fast and the Furious, I should call it. And so he was kind of a little bit, this was before Fast Five. It's before even Fast and Furious comes out. Before that franchise suddenly became this billion-dollar earner out of nowhere. And it is kind of weird to go back to 2004 and think, and actually when I wrote the review in '07, that hadn't happened yet. So it is kind of weird to think of the movie ecosystem that Matt Schultz exists in now versus what he was in at that time, because now he's a part of this movie franchise. It's larger, it's like a big, massive thing. It's very interesting. It's like, and also Seagal at that time still had enough of a name that a Matt Schultz would be like, yeah, I'll do a Seagal movie. I'll play a baddie in a Seagal movie. It'll be like Michael Caine, or whoever. I'm trying to think of other baddies in Seagal movies. Why can't I think of Gary Busey, right? Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, Gary Busey,
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones,
Right.
Eric Bergazian.
Right. Yeah. If
Such
you're
a random one. I don't know, like Under Siege 2. Who's the bad guy for Under Siege 2? Oh, it's this playwright. Okay.
the guy from Talk Radio is yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
but if you're Matt Schultz, you're thinking you're sort of entering into that world at that time. And now I'm sure he looks back on it and is like, Transporter, Fast and Furious, great. Out of Reach, no, not so great.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's quite a lot of, like, particularly in his '90s days, there's quite a lot of like great Seagal villains, like the ones we mentioned. The Tommy Lee Jones, Guy Busey combination of Under Siege, Michael Caine and on Deadly Ground, William Sadler in Hard to Kill. Which just because I like mentioning it, which Hard to Kill also gave us like Seagal's greatest ever line, where like the senator that Sadler's playing, his like kind of like slogan his like political slogan is like on "You can take that to the bank," and Seagal's greatest ever line, he goes, "I'll take you to the bank, Senator, the blood bank."
I love that one.
Seagal has never topped that. That is a line of dialogue.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's never had a better one-liner than that one. But it is, don't they play that one in Step Brothers when the two of them are watching, like when they're bonding?
So. I think you might be right. I think
Yeah.
you might be right. Like, because it is. He's never had a better one-liner. That is the peak of Seagal one-liners.
And when you think of like great action movie one-liners, that's up there. That's like Seagal's entry in the I'll be back.
Yeah.
I had to let him go.
I like every time I've watched Hard to Kill and that line happens, I'm like, that's great. I'm sure the screenwriter like high-fived himself when he wrote that. I was like, this is going to fucking kill.
Exactly. And I think this is kind of the funny thing for us doing these movies now is that at that time they were in 2004 Seagal still had enough of a cachet to be that guy. So it's like you get Matt Schultz to do the movie. People a Blockbuster Video will buy 25,000, 30,000 copies of the movie. I first watched this on Spike TV here in the United States, and so I think I DVR'd it on so it was on cable as well. And it's funny when we talk about him now. It's just like, God, who'd work with Seagal? Who'd want to do all this stuff? And of course, all these people learn the reality, right? When they're on set with him, they learn, Matt Schultz has never done another movie with Seagal after this. It's not like, he's,
I mean, like you say, he's much like kind of lower down in the rungs now. But yeah, I mean, like you say, in 2004, circa 2004, his last kind of like decent sized theatrical hit was Exit Wounds, which was 2001. It's only been like 3 years before. So like he still had that cachet of being like a kind of theatrical big action star. And as much as like we love to make fun of him and and generally people love to make fun of him for all sorts of reasons. I mean, like, I think like just because like he's a terrible person, I think that we can sometimes kind of frame it of like, oh, everybody always thought he was terrible or thought he was a goof or whatever. And like there was always plenty of Seagal jokes in the 90s as well, but he was like a decent sized action star, not of the same level of a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger. He wasn't like making the biggest movies in the world, but like there is a reason that he was like had his choice of projects. And like, Warner Brothers gave him like a $50 million budget to make his directorial debut. It's because he was making them quite a lot of money in the 90s, for a period. Certainly in the early to mid 90s. I mean, obviously, post On Deadly Ground, the wheels did start to come off. But in those kind of first like 5-6 movies, he made Warner Brothers a lot of money. So yeah, so he did still have that cachet. He wasn't that far away from like his kind of commercial peak of people wanting to see him at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of funny to go back to it out. And granted, I mean, I think it's another thing too with the people who made the movie that if for whatever reason they watched the original cut and said, no, this thing needs to be redone, reshot, redubbed, and all that stuff, there's probably still a mindset of whatever we give to the distributors, whatever we give to Blockbuster Video and cable companies and all of that, just having Seagal on it, they're going to take it. And, and I guess if you're someone who rents this from Blockbuster and you spend whatever money on it, and the opening scene is some dubbed voice reading a letter to a 14-year-old Polish orphan, you're just like, I don't know what I'm watching here, but hey, it's Seagal. Let me see where this goes, and there's probably a sense after the movie when you're just like, well, they had a couple of good action scenes. It wasn't horrible. I mean, whereas now you watch this so far removed from that time, and it's like, no, this was horrible. This was really bad, and it's like, what was I watching here?
Yeah, that's true, and I mean I've heard you discuss it like a number of times on your podcast. Like basically, um, they were like Seagal was like one of the guys in terms of the DTV world when him and Van Damme started to parachute into the DTV world in the early 2000s. They became like kind of top dogs in that realm, and then everybody else was kind of pushed down a rung. Like because like into terms of commerciality and like fame, even somebody like Dolph, who probably was the previous number one DTV guy throughout the 90s, was kind of pushed down a little bit. And then everybody else, your Don the Dragons and your Michael Dudikoffs and all that, were pushed down a rung because, like, Van Damme's getting the Dolph ones and Dolph is getting the Dudikoff ones or whatever, whatever kind of thing. So like they were kind of top of the tree in terms of that era of DTV.
Yeah, no, parachute is a great term for it because it's almost like in the Premier League. I'm going into English soccer here already on our. If for people listening with their bingo cards, yes, we're
Oh yeah,
we're not,
yeah,
yeah, we're now in the Premier League.
we get to take that off. Yes, if people have followed this journey and our 14th entry into this Seagal journey, then yes, there's always a Premier League reference. We always shoehorn it in somehow. So go ahead, Matt.
In the early days of the Premier League, where because the whole point of the Premier League was that they kind of took they sort of gated a certain amount of the money, so it wasn't a part of the entire football pyramid in league pyramid in England. But there was the idea of the parachute payments that if you were relegated down to it wasn't the championship at that time, but the first division, but now it's the championship. When you were relegated down to that level, you had these parachute payments that you took with you from like the Sky Sports TV money and all that kind of thing, and it gave you a leg up to be able to bounce back. And they called it the bounce back effect, where you'd have those parachute payments and come back in. But it's kind of the same thing in that Seagal and Van Damme, I think they were expecting to parachute back, to bounce back, to the big screen world, that the DTV thing would only be a short thing. But the parachute of their, when they parachuted in with their names, it was kind of the same thing as, the like a Hull or somebody like that getting, or Fulham, I think is a great example, or West Ham, teams that would get relegated and come back up quite a bit. That when that happened, suddenly, now like the lower division, so like, Dolph would be like your Sheffield United or something like that, suddenly they're trying to compete against these teams that have more resources. And, for like a Dolph, he had enough of a name, but to compete against Van Damme or Seagal. And then, like you said, as they kept going, I mean, 3 years after this movie in 2007, Don the Dragon Wilson goes on hiatus because he was going to make a movie and his part was replaced with Ray Liotta. He was just like, I can't, I'm done with this. But when Seagal comes down to the DTV world, Seagal and Van Damme in particular, it completely reshuffles the ecosystem in a way that it made it hard for other names to compete. I mean, one of the things Dolph does around this period is he starts directing his own movies, and he sort of takes a different approach where he's like, I'm not going to keep doing the dregs. I'll make my own movies, and I'll be able to, so you get something like Command Performance 5 years after this, that he directs. And I think Defender came out in 2004 that he directed with Jerry Springer as the president.
That's right. I've seen that one. Yeah, that's right. And Command Performance was my first appearance on your pod.
Exactly. Right. We talked about Command. Yeah. So exactly. So it is interesting how they kind of the two of them really shook up the direct-to-video world, and they sort of wrung the last gasps out of that direct-to-video world, because then it gets into the, when we get into the 2010s, the streaming world starts to take over, and Blockbuster starts to their business model starts to go away, and so then when the streaming world comes, the money's not there as much. But even then, like a Seagal or a Van Damme, they were able to get another few years, they were, I guess in Seagal's case, he got another 10 years out of it before 2019 comes. I mean, he's trying to make stuff again, but it is interesting. When they come in, it's at the tail end of the DTV, sort of the golden age of DTV. And they essentially come in and sort of take all the money away from anybody else that could have potentially earned at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, like, totally. That's like it's. Um, I don't know. Like, it's. Yeah, I think that, like, yeah, he definitely they're one of the ones that, like, kind of was um that, like, just didn't bounce back. Like, they like you say, they kind of, yeah, reshaped the DTV um, sphere. Um, and yeah, probably in this era, probably thinking, like, we'll do a few of these, and then we get back to the big game. And then they just didn't. They're kind of like, to circle it back to the Premier League. Just going from highs to lows. You know, it's like it's like Blackburn Rovers, who once won the Premier League back in 1995, and then were relegated from the Premier League in 2012, and have never been back. They've bobbled about in the Championship. Yeah, I think they even dipped into League One at one point. And so, like, yes, so, like, yeah, Seagal and Van Damme are like the Blackburn Rovers of of action stars. Once top of the world, but now, but yeah, just bobbling about.
I'll always remember, as an aside, I'll always remember when Blackburn first went down. I think it was like the year after they won the Premier League, they went down.
Oh, yeah. When we were relegated, yeah, because they have been relegated before. Yeah, they had earlier relegations. I'll look it up.
Yeah, and I remember Man United.
Oh no, it was a while after. So they got relegated in '99, and then they spent a couple of years in what was then Division One,
right?
And then they bounced back in the 01-02 season,
yeah,
into the Premier League. So yeah, so it was '99 they were relegated, and then but they bounced back like 2 seasons later, whereas after their 2012 relegation, I guess that's kind of like Seagal as well, because it's like he did the Patriot, and then he bounced back and had one last hit with Exit Wounds, and then kind of yeah, and then kind of went back into the DTV realm shortly after that, because suddenly my mind's gone blank on the movie he did with Ja Rule.
Because no, oh, what was it? Something Half Past Dead.
Half Past Dead. Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. I should know that. But like Half Past Dead. Yeah. Half Past Dead didn't quite work, and then post Half Past Dead, he was just in the DTV realm.
Yeah.
So yes. So that's my analogy. That Seagal is the Blackburn Rovers. I'm sorry to Blackburn Rovers. If any Blackburn Rovers fans are watching, a great club, great history. Yeah. Like you did win the Premier League once, so all respect to you.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I remember when they went down that first time. They interviewed, because Manchester United was the one that beat them. That meant they couldn't get enough points to stay up. And they interviewed Sir Alex Ferguson, and the reporter, BBC reporter, was like, "So what do you think? You just sent Blackburn Rovers. They're relegated now." And he's like, "What? No, they have a few games left, right? It wasn't us." And they were like, "No, you were the ones that sent them down." And he was like kind of crestfallen that he had sent Blackburn Rovers down, because I guess that's kind of like a whole mid-England derby, right? With what do they got, the Lancashire derby, right? With the different clubs in that area.
Yeah. Blackburn Rovers, a Lancashire club. Yeah, I guess like they're just a club with a lot of history, so like maybe it was just sad.
Yeah.
On that term. Obviously, as a Manchester United fan myself, obviously I'm a big fan of Sir Alex, and also because I'm also Scottish, so so obviously big fan and promoter of Sir Alex and all his great works.
No, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was my introduction, because I started watching the Premier League in the late '90s like that. So it was sort of like that was, I mean, him and Arsene Wenger. Obviously, I was an Arsenal fan. So, but yeah, his tactics, his ability to manage a team, but yeah, just I'll always remember that interview that they played on, on it was Fox, called the Fox Soccer Channel, in
Yeah.
America. So it was, it was always interesting that we would be watching the, I'd be watching all these games and all this stuff on Fox Sports, that they were,
Yeah.
yeah. But I guess,
Although I will say though, if your entire knowledge of Scotland comes from football managers, and you've just seen like Alex Ferguson and Walter Smith and David Moyes and Graham Souness being interviewed, you would just think, what a bunch of miserable bastards Scottish people are. Just unbelievable. Just no happiness, no joy in them at all. Like,
right now,
like if that's your only experience of Scottishness through football managers, you just think absolute misery guts. Just oh my god, just a solemn, stony-faced people. No sense of humour.
right, exactly. I watched a United game a little bit after. So he'd retired. I can't remember, because obviously David Moyes took over, which I think that just made him even more miserable. That he had to follow Alex Ferguson with Man United. But I remember Ferguson was at a Man United game, and he was sitting with Mick Hucknall from Simply Red, and it was just like, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, Sir Alex Ferguson is friends with Mick Hucknall from Simply Red. Like, I get, like, can you imagine like Sir Alex Ferguson, like after a game, like sitting, in his office or whatever, listening to like Holding Back the Years or something like that? Like, it just,
I can't really, no.
yeah,
I can't really. I
It's-
can't really. I remember when they won the treble,
yeah,
because I've been a Manchester United fan for a while when they won the treble in '99. And when they won the treble in '99, so I think it was the first time I saw Alex Ferguson crack a smile. I was like, wait, when they won that European trophy in the last dying seconds, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer scored that goal in the last dying seconds, I was like, it's actually, so he is capable of happiness. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
I actually thought of that final recently because I don't know if you've seen clips of the because I didn't watch the Olympics. I wasn't going to watch it, but I watched some clips, and they were showing that the losing hockey teams in the gold medal finals, they got these like stuffed animals, and you're seeing like these losing players from like I think it was both Canada, for both men's and women's. They're getting these stuffed animals. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I just thought of Lothar Matthäus taking off his second medal, after losing that game. So that was like the thought I had.
Oh, that was a great moment. Good old Lothar Matthäus. Talking about people who don't have a sense of humor. Bayern Munich have a history of producing players like that. Very good players, fantastically arrogant. A player who played for both Bayern and Manchester United, Bastian Schweinsteiger, also followed in that mold. They had a few of those kind of. Stefan Edberg was that's not. I think I get confused with. Anyway, I don't think that is his name. I think I'm getting confused with a tennis player.
Stefan Edberg was a tennis player. You're right. Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, there was another guy who had a similar.
I know who you're talking about. I know the player.
Stefan Edberg's a Swedish tennis player, but it was Stefan Effenberg.
Yeah.
It was the Bayern midfielder I was thinking of. Anyway, I guess that's probably enough match of the day for now.
It's funny.
Although, do people know? I don't know if people because your audience is Americans, so they might not know what match of the day is. Match of the day is a program in the UK. That's like a football highlights program that's on Saturday. It's been running since the early 60s. And still has the same theme song because they did try to change it once and everybody lost their goddamn mind.
That's funny. The same thing happened here in Philadelphia when they changed the music to the nightly news program. for one of the channels. They updated it and people complained and they just brought it back to the old version. But Match of the Day has come up on this pod before. I mean, beyond you and I talking about it, but Accident Man Hitman's Holiday. They make a joke about Match of the Day, and Will from Exploding Helicopter, he was on talking about that, and he's like, I'm not sure if everybody. I think the joke was like, you'll be in and out before Match of the Day's on. I think is the joke.
Okay.
Yeah,
because it's usually on at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night.
Yeah. So that was what. Yeah, we used to. So because I think Sky did Sky. No, it wasn't on Fox Soccer Channel. My friend, because my friend went to school at Sunderland for a semester, and so he's now a fan of Sunderland. And so he and I, when I was living in Portland, Maine, where he is, we would watch the Saturday and Sunday football games, and then he would illegally stream Match of the Day. He found a way to get it, and so we would watch.
Well, I don't know, because I assumed, because it's usually on at like 10:30 on a Saturday night, in the UK. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they just don't have the rights to do it in the US or whatever. But I kind of assumed that maybe it might have been something that popped up on BBC America, because I know there is a BBC America.
No, BBC America is all.
What is BBC America?
Yeah,
just TV shows.
Exactly, TV
nothing,
shows.
right.
And actually, because Doctor Who was like the most popular TV show that they would air on there, and also like Orphan Black was another popular one, they became like a sci-fi channel type thing, and they would air Star Trek: The Next Generation episodes.
Oh yes, because they did, like in the UK, the BBC had the rights for the Star Trek shows.
Yeah.
Or certainly the original Star Trek through to Star Trek Voyager. I don't know. I think all the new Star Treks are just Paramount Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
But original Star Trek through to Voyager, the BBC had the rights to and used to show it on BBC Two. We're getting into the weeds about BBC programming. But I know like 90s and 2000s BBC programming, I know a lot about that. But probably your listeners are like, that's enough British TV for now.
Yes. No, I will say, so the post-game show in America, it's like a podcast. Or it's kind of like a post thing, but it's they call it the two Robbies. It's Robbie Mustoe and Robbie Earl. Because they do the Premier League here in America with Tim Howard. And so then they do a show where they talk about the games after the fact. It's kind of funny because those two are getting a little bit on in years. They're getting a little older. I don't remember if I remember watching them play. I feel like Robbie Earl in particular, I thought, but maybe not. They might have been before I was watching. But it's like you watch them now because when they're on the show, right, they're all dressed up and everything. Or, when they're on, doing the commentating on the during the actual games. But when they do the show, they've got their readers on and they're just kind of like looking at things and drinking tea, just like talking about the games. It's like just two elder fellows, just discussing the game a bit. But it's like a whole different vibe from Match of the Day for sure. Yeah, so maybe we'll I guess this is a good place to transition back into the film. I guess just the mention of parachute, because I think I'd only ever heard the term parachute payments in conjunction with the Premier League, so that's what it made me think of that. But I wanted to talk about the message in the caviar. Because it's another fascinating thing in this movie. So for people who don't know, the movie is just all about like the young girl. Seagal and the young girl talk about like he teaches how to use coded language to send things, or like how to use like make symbols, with codes and symbols so that that they can communicate without people knowing. But somehow Matt Schultz's character, Faisal, he understands how the code works. And there's a scene where she's being led to some back room and she sees like these caviar things. And she's like, I want to have some caviar. And she just starts rearranging the caviar tray. And Schultz watches her and says, no, nobody touch this tray. We're going to give it to Seagal when he gets here. And none of it made any sense. It was like, okay, he's giving her a secret message. Well, wouldn't you want to intercept the secret message? Oh, no, we're going to let him give her the secret message. He knows it says it's a trap, and he's also setting a trap for Seagal. So wouldn't he think that would warn him? None of it made any sense. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, this scene, like in terms of pure entertainment, is great because it's so kind of like absurdist. It's so kind of like ridiculous. If like, yes, she's been taught these kind of ciphers and kind of visual codes and stuff like that. and yeah, so like you say, she rearranges these kind of like little entrees on the like caviar things on this tray to spell out it's a trap to Seagal. And I don't know why. I don't understand. Yeah, Faisal's like you. I didn't understand Faisal's logic of why he thought it was fun to like give this to Seagal so he knows it's a trap. Like unless he is like so arrogant and so confident in his abilities that even giving his opponent the kind of upper hand in a sense, he can still overcome. Like he's such a gambler. He's he's living on the edge. He's a risk taker. That he thinks that he can show his hand and still get away with it. Because it gives him a thrill. I don't know. I mean, like I guess that was my trying to deep dive into the psychology of being like, maybe this is it. Maybe he's such a risk taker. Maybe he's so confident that he thinks he can even give the game away and still win in the end.
Right, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense that like because it's not like he uses that information in any way to excuse me to get one over on Seagal, right? He doesn't
No.
it's not like he has a secondary trap or anything like that. I mean, I guess there's the fact that he is able to take the girl away, that Seagal's not able to save her there in that moment, and maybe that's what it was supposed to be, was that he got the girl out of there. By he I meant Faisal, and
Mm.
so maybe that was what it was that he couldn't rescue her at that moment, so we were able to tack an extra 30 minutes of movie on. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, um, yeah. I guess like there's a couple of scenes like that where you're like, wait a second, what is, I, like, I guess like an equivalent scene that Seagal does, like a kind of trick that he does, is there is a character that Faisal is in cahoots with. I think it's Aibo,
Yeah.
and like Seagal, like the Seagal like gets this sex worker to go to him to kind of like kind of seduce him and get him into a room so then Seagal can talk to him, which kind of makes sense. Just written down. If you just wrote that down, you'd be like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Okay, so to get him into the room, and then, but then the way the scene plays out, it seems like the guy is very easily bribable. So could have just done that. Like the whole kind of like sex worker ploy seems like extraneous to like kind of like I could have just like because Seagal's been shown to be invincible, so he could have just like grabbed him, beat him up a little, whatever, does his normal Seagal stuff, slap him about a bit, and then being like, I've got this big bag of money for you. You want it? If you give me the information, the guy's like, sure. Like the whole I think like to me it just felt like one of those like DTV rule things of just being like oh okay, like there's we've got some blood, we've got some action, but we don't have any sex. There's no sex in the movie at all. We know our audience, we want some titillation, so what do we got? And they're like, I guess we could have just a random scene, couple of random scenes in a brothel. Does a brothel really add anything to the plot? No, it's just some guy, some producer said they wanted some titillation in the movie. So we thought we'd have some brothel scenes. All right, cool. And that's how that happened.
There's also the added piece to this that I think, when Seagal's involved, we can never forget that Seagal's involved. And the scene involves him when he goes to the brothel to pick up, like you said, to pick up the sex worker to work for him. There's all of these beautiful women who are just looking at him. And I know, like, the idea is supposed to be, I think, not that he's in a brothel and so the sex workers would want to look enticing to him to make him want to pay. The idea is that these women are essentially giving him the eye that says, hey, I would have sex with you anyway. I wouldn't you wouldn't have to pay for it, right? And it's like,
Yeah, I think that's the idea that the scene is setting up. I was just being like, their heart is such a flutter that they're kind of like, oh my god,
right.
this man.
Seagal is such an honorable man that he is going to pay this woman for her time, but not have sex with her, right? This is the kind of guy that Seagal is, and I think again, it's one of those things where,
Yes, like, and this is like, in terms of the Seagal bingo card, this is like classic Seagal, where he pulls a move where it's clearly a massive vanity ego stroke, but he tries to present it as him being like noble and honorable. This is like peak Seagal moment.
exactly. And and to your point though, it does nothing to further the plot. I mean, the other thing I guess is this movie doesn't have the sexy nightclub scene that most of these movies have.
That's true. That's true. I mean, like, obviously, anytime I'm watching a DTV action film and there's not a random shoehorn scene in a Romanian strip club, I'm very disappointed. Like, like, come on, guys, we gotta have at least one.
Right. So I guess to your point, like they had to shoehorn this in for two reasons, right? One is that this movie didn't have that element to it, and then two, Seagal needed the aggrandizement, right, of having that sequence. But to your point, it's completely out of place from a story standpoint. Even if this was intended as part of the, I mean, it doesn't. There's no need for it. Like you said, the guy was very easily swayed. But even if he wasn't, just going in while he's in the restaurant and accosting him would have gotten,
which is normally what Seagal does in lots of his other movies. He just bursts into places like like disregarding any kind of concerns for his own safety because he knows he has a ton of plot armor on and will not be actually affected by it. And just like mess things up. And so like I just felt like it was kind of shoehorned in because we gotta have at least one or two scenes where like there's scantily clad ladies wandering about giving Seagal the eye. Yeah.
Right. Now another piece of the bingo card, of course, is the foreign language expertise. And in this case, for some reason, his character, I guess, lives that he's mailing his items out of Toronto, and for some reason, he tells the girl to get a hold of him. He'll be in Montreal, and I think that's where the letter goes to him, is in Montreal. But of course, he has to speak French with the guy at the post office because
that's great because he has all these different. He has all these different aliases throughout the movie. Like his character name is William Lansing, but he has all these different aliases. And like when Lewis, the CIA agent, first catches up with him, he throws like an ID card at him that's like Timothy something. But like this is my favorite one where the postman like says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Ducroix."
Exactly. And of course he's like,
and I was like, oh yeah, if I was picking like a Quebecois kind of alias, I would definitely be Mr. Ducroix.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I guess in my case, it would still be my last name because
you'd still I mean, you wouldn't have to have like an undercover Quebecois name because your name is already French.
Yeah, I wonder if I'd have to do it the other way around and be pear tree, because that's what Poirier means in French. It means pear tree. If I'd have to be pear tree to like throw them off, like, oh yeah, he's coming. Well, my father was actually American. Or so, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Whereas I definitely have to have an undercover Quebecois name because, like, if I rocked up Mr. Murphy, like, you've got the. So you're claiming to be French somehow, despite having the most Irish surname in the world? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd have to have something there. So yeah, to your point, Lacroix is a good one. That's it's easy. It's easy enough to say, but at the same time, it sounds good. You could. It's an easy one to do with a French accent, I should say. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think they would clock on fast because, like, I can't do a French accent. The only French accent I can do is literally the Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau voice.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah. So yeah, it's the Seagal bingo card. It's kind of amazing the degree to which these things happen and all. Like I watched a good chunk of Seagal movies when I first started this site. This was actually the second movie I reviewed of Seagal's. And but even then, it was like I guess they would still be far enough apart. I don't know. It's just funny how when we've been watching these, and it's not like we're watching one every day. We're watching them every other month or so. We took a little bit of time, for the holidays, so it's been a few months since the last one. But it's not like we're just like one banging out 15 in over the course of 3 nights or something like that. We're watching them over time. But these I don't if trope I feel is not the right word because a trope is something that like every movie does, and
Yeah,
these are
that's true.
these are unique to Seagal movies. It's bingo card is the best way to describe it. It's just you go in with your list of things and you just take them off as the episode goes on.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, maybe someday we should like tally up like just how many, like based on his theatrical career and his DTV career, like how many languages he can supposedly speak. So like, because I know, I think he, like, just off the top of my head, I know that the various characters that Seagal plays, and basically Seagal's, because there is this bingo card, it feels like it's all in this connected universe. So it seems like it's just various different aliases of like the same person.
Right.
So he can speak. He can, as well as obviously just English, French, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, Alaskan Inuit. He can speak that as well.
Korean.
So that's Korean. That's right. He's well across all the East Asian languages, I think. I mean, did he in Belly of the Beast? Did he speak Thai? Did he speak Thai in
He
that?
might
That was
have.
set in Thailand.
Yeah,
I
think he did.
Thai, yeah.
No, I think he
Yeah.
did. Yes.
Yeah, I think we can add Thai to that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're up to at least 7. So he can speak at least 7 languages.
Right. And I guess we got a new one this time, right? Because I don't think he's spoken French in a movie before that we've seen.
No, I think this is the first time we've spoken French in a movie.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye out for it as we go on if he speaks in any other languages. But impressive, he's got the 7 there that we've counted up. Well done.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It is amazing how many of these things come up in multiple movies, and he's just, he doesn't. I mean, he obviously he's in the movies. He must know that they're all in these movies, but he feels like he's got. He has to be a polyglot. He has to be. I mean, obviously the ex-CIA thing. I was trying to think how many of those we've seen, because there's certain ones like Out for a Kill where he was like an antiquities thief who became a professor in Chinese antiquities. So he's not always an ex-CIA. It's just enough. He does that character enough that it's there enough. But these are things that seem to happen in every movie. I mean, Out for a Kill, I think, is the one where he was speaking. No, or was that Pistol Whip where he was speaking Korean to the woman running the food stand?
I think so, because I think like. Just remember, Out for a Kill was mainly Chinese based,
right? Yeah,
and because and possibly his most hilarious vocation that he had in one of his movies, he was an architect that specialized in Chinese antiquities, and I think they did specify the kind of the period of time that he was most. Like under which emperor or whatever. But anyway, of a particular era, but I can't remember that. But I remember he was an architect, not an architect, an archaeologist specializing in Chinese antiquities. And I guess we can add that he can also, while not a language, he can also speak Ebonics.
That's right.
More of a vernacular than a language, but but you can also do that. So yeah, he's very multifaceted in terms of the people he can communicate with.
Well, sorry, let's move on to another bingo card item.
Yes.
When he's back, he goes back to the brothel because there's like an escape hatch there, right? I think that's the deal, and so he goes back there, and that's where Robbie G, or Lewis has I guess what he's doing is, I think he's taking some of Faisal's men to take down Seagal at the brothel, and it ends up with a standoff between Robbie G and Seagal, and Robbie G starts talking to him, calling, "Hey, Billy Ray, you got to get out here," stuff like that, and it's almost like on cue. Seagal whips out the Ebonics, right, the black scent or whatever. It's
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah.
another one in the bingo card thing where it's just like, and you knew it was coming. You knew the moment that Robbie G's character starts turning it up a little bit, that Seagal was going to be. It's almost like he's egging him on. It's almost like it's like a like with a cat, where if you bring out turkey, the cat's going to come eat the turkey. It's like, if I start speaking a certain way, Seagal's going to mimic it. I got it's.
It's so true. It's so true, and it must. I don't know. I mean, it must feel incredibly awkward for those actors, I guess. Like, just because it feels like such a patronizing move. Like, it's like, because like, again, like, Seagal always presents himself as this kind of white knight character, but he is. I mean, I guess it would, like, probably term wouldn't be around there, but I guess, like, he is what would probably be described now as like a kind of performative ally.
Yes.
Of
yeah.
like he's kind of putting on the sheen of allydom, but actually it's all about himself. Like, it's all burnishing his own ego. Because, like, I'm a great guy. Just tell me I'm a great guy.
Right. Well, and I wonder too if Robbie G, for him, it's like maybe getting demo reel tape of him, speaking an American accent, and being able to do that, so that, like, the U.S. market, the U.S. productions open up to him, especially at that time. Idris Elba was in the Wire and was making a huge name for himself, and so it's almost like, I wonder if there's a part of him that's like, is it worth it to get this on the demo reel if I've got to listen to Seagal? Like, it's is it worth it for my career to get this on film so that my agent can shop it to productions in America, if I've got to listen to Seagal do the same thing?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but yeah, he's probably trying to, like, break through a little bit, just kind of like get into kind of the kind of because obviously he'd done a lot of British TV, and then he'd done a few British films, and this was him trying to break into Hollywood. I'm just looking at his credits. I actually forgot that he was in Underworld the year before this.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so obviously in this era he was trying to break into the kind of Hollywood, break into Hollywood. So yeah.
Yeah, because I know Tandy Newton did. I want to say it was Chronicles of Riddick. I mean, I know she did Chronicles of Riddick, but I think it was, she was interviewed for that when she was doing publicity for that movie. I think it was when she was interviewed for that, where they asked her, like, why she picked that movie, and she said that in the UK at that time it was hard getting roles because a huge chunk of them were these Victorian period pieces where they just wanted white actors in those roles. And so you can see, like, maybe where in Idris Elba, he's able to sort of get into the American market where there's more places, more roles for him. And I wonder, to some extent, for Robbie G, if he also was thinking the same thing. Like, okay, I've got these roles that I can do here in England, but if I can get into the American market, there's more opportunity for me there. And so, okay.
Yeah, I think I've heard a number of Black British actors talk about that, and in terms of, like, getting work, like finding it easy, Idris Elba and David Oyelowo, and there's another actor I'm thinking of that I'm blanking on the name of, but they've all kind of mentioned that they found it kind of easier to get kind of work in the States as opposed to the UK. I guess it's a bit different now. There's, I guess with a lot of television, there's a bit more diversity. Yes, that's the other actor I was trying to think of, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
Another great British actor. Although I remember like watching like a comedy routine from Roy Wood Jr. who mentioned there's kind of a tension there, because I think like there's Black British actors are kind of seen as kind of classier by American producers than American, African American actors. And I think between African American actors and Black British actors, I think there is, I think over the years there's been certain tensions there of like, like particularly with like the likes of David Arell playing Martin Luther King in Selma and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't want to dive too deeply into that because obviously I am not part of that community. I'm a white Scottish guy, and so I don't want to speak to that too much. I'm just reiterating what I've heard from Black actors, American ones, and comedians and stuff like that. That's so I'm just reiterating that. I don't want to give too much comment on it because I feel very self-conscious right now of being like, oh, I'm a white guy telling it, like the story or whatever, because we have to have our oar and everything. Like, I'm not giving an opinion on that necessarily. I'm just saying that's what I've heard.
No. I think that's something that even goes back as far as like blaxploitation films. Michael Jai White makes a joke about it in Black Dynamite, where the character that plays his brother is, a Shakespearean trained actor. And he's like reading these lines with his English accent, like completely, unnaturally. So I think it's a tension that has existed for some time. But yeah, I mean, excuse me. I think it's, I was on a podcast where we were talking about our favorite sports movies, and I mentioned Bend It Like Beckham is one of my favorite sports movies, and and so it came up about the fact that Parminda Nagra hasn't really gotten the roles that Keira Knightley did, even though Bend It Like Beckham hinges on Parminda Nagra's performance. Like, it's all her in that one. But I think it's kind of the same thing. And the funny thing is, she came here to America and did ER, and it's kind of a she got to play in that role, and it's almost like ER was trying to maybe sort of play kind of lean into more of the reality that there are a lot of people of Indian descent who are doctors here in America, in city hospitals in particular. And so like, oh, well, okay, we'll get Parminda Nagra. So she's not getting, but when you think about it, right, when they're making Atonement, it's like, well, they're not going to cast Parminda Nagra in the role that Keira Knightley did in Atonement. So it's just kind of that reality. But to your point, it's like, there's a lot of racism in American Hollywood. And I think there is a sense of like, oh, well, Americans in general, this is when I think I can at least dip my oar in on this one, is that Americans in general, when they hear an English accent, they think this person's more sophisticated almost right away. Because, British soccer hooligans don't really make their way to America that much. And they aren't on, American TV that much and that kind of thing. So Americans don't see that side of England. They see the sort of sculpted Oxford English side that's sent over here. And so it would be easy for anybody from England who to just turn it on a little bit, just turn on that BBC Oxford charm a little bit, and everybody would be eating out of their hands. So at least that part I can speak to, I think is a reality.
Fair enough. I do get that. I have heard that like people who speak in what's referred to as, I don't know if you know the term, but what's referred to as RP, which means received pronunciation, which basically means like speaking the Queen's English,
right,
or I guess it's the King's English now. But like so long. So much of my life I heard it referred to the Queen's English. So that's that very kind of, like you say, that kind of Oxbridge, kind of Oxford and Cambridge kind of private school educated. Although ironically in UK they are called public schools, even though they are private. They are fee-paying schools. So the fee-paying schools, and they, that very tight-lipped kind of speaking in a very proper English like that,
Right.
very clipped kind of, like a BBC news reporter from the 1940s. This is this is a BBC calling from London. Like that kind of like a kind of war news bulletin. Yeah, people, and the same in the UK. Like people are still kind of impressed by that and just assume that you're kind of classy or assume that you're intelligent in some way, even if you're fucking moron. Like so it's a kind of scourge in the UK as well. People just kind of project things onto you.
Yeah.
Just because you're speaking that very kind of, oh yes, I'm James Mason. Like
right, exactly.
that voice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's funny. I was thinking about accents. With the Scottish accent. I was watching Olympus Has Fallen. I hadn't seen that one yet. And Gerard Butler's character, for the most part, he doesn't really have a really thick Scottish accent in the movie. It's just you can kind of hear it in spots. But there's that moment where he's with Rodha Mitchell at the beginning of the film where he just Ashley Judd's character had died and he was like demoted to some other job and doing security. And he's not really listening to Rodha Mitchell tell her story about her friends Patty and Paula and all that stuff. And he realizes he's losing her. So he tries to get her back. He's like, why don't we go see a movie when I get out of work? And she's like, she's kind of coming around. He's like, and if you want, you can bring Patty and Paula. And I can't do the Scottish accent of how he says it, but he really like pulls it on really thick. And she just is completely melted. Her character is just like, it was like such a funny scene where he did that. I do wonder if he did that on purpose. If he was just like, he knows
maybe.
If he turns on the Scottish accent in America, that women will swoon over it.
Maybe. But I mean, obviously, the Scottish accent has lots of negative connotations in the UK.
Right.
We're seen as kind of uncouth and uncultured, and kind of we talk like that. So like, it is quite funny that internationally people seem to enjoy it, and obviously, I think like a lot of people don't know. And maybe because like Gerard Butler comes from Glasgow, which is our most populous city.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people have come across the Glaswegian accent, so I assume that is the Scottish accent, which is not. We have tons of regional accents. Like just a mind-boggling amount for a small country of 5 million people, 5.5 million people. We have a mind-boggling amount of like regional accents. We have tons of different accents. So there's loads of people, and there's some accents that are so baffling that even other Scottish people are like, I honestly don't know what they're saying. So it's very interesting in terms of that accent stuff. I do feel like I'm betraying my nation a little bit. I did think Olympus Has Fallen is a bit po-faced for me. I did think that White House Down was a more fun film of those two. But like, so it's just maybe betraying my nation, which I apologise for. Because I can't knock other Scottish people. My favourite one of somebody doing their Scottish accent unintentionally is in Star Wars Episode 3.
Yes.
Ewan McGregor, who up until this point has been doing a perfect Obi-Wan impersonation of Alec Guinness, and has spoke like that for nearly 3 entire movies. So he's done that, and he gets to the final third act of Star Wars Episode 3, and he's having the fight with Anakin on the volcano planet at the end. And he's got the high ground and he's telling them off, and obviously, Anakin can't win and all that. And like, again, he's been doing this perfect Alec Guinness impersonation for nearly 3 whole films. And then there's just this moment where he turns round to Anakin and he goes, "But you were the chosen one!" And that was like, okay.
Yes, that's so perfect.
Clearly they tried a bunch of, I can only assume that they tried a bunch of times, and you'd be like, can you say that line in the voice that you've been doing for nearly 3 whole movies now, Ewan? Maybe just a little less Scottish. And I just imagine that, like, in the end, they were just like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Just when he gets angry, he gets a bit Scottish. That's all. Well, it's fine. It's okay. We'll move on.
No, that is a beautiful one. I love that. I started watching the James Bond movies, and I think when I was a kid watching some of those early ones, the Connery ones, my ear wasn't as tuned to like, hearing different accents, but it's like I realized like how much you can hear his Scottish accent in the especially those first two James Bond movies, and I can also see like you were saying about like sort of the kind of the way people perceive a Scottish accent in England, that like, I mean, I know Ian Fleming eventually added Scottish heritage to Connery because he was so taken by how he performed in that movie. But it's like I was imagining, like as I was hearing it, like what people in England would have thought, like that's how James Bond sounds, because there are moments where you can really hear a Scottish accent in certain parts of the movie.
Yeah, because like Scottish accents are kind of associated with kind of roughness, I guess, like a kind of like I say, like a kind of slightly unsophisticated, uncivilized kind of roughness. So yeah, traditionally, which Scottish people tend to get quite uppity about, including myself.
It came up ever so slightly when I don't know if you heard an episode I did, actually it was released just last month, that I had two Scottish actors. They're from Glasgow, Nicolette McKeown and Stephen Kerr. They were in a movie that was a Scottish production called Death Among the Pines. But yeah, Stephen Kerr made one kind of, because we were talking about the Scottish film industry in general and sort of like why a lot of movies aren't making it to America, because that one was a really good one. And he did mention, he kind of brought up a little bit about politics and and I think he was kind of verging on that. I don't know if he was worried that maybe the listeners wouldn't take to it or something, but yeah, he kind of mentioned it ever so slightly that, I think that about that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, and just for that, just in case people are interested, I don't know if they are, but in terms of the Scottish accent, that's the Americans always pronounce it like that, but Scottish. Well, if you're being really kind of, people from Glasgow sometimes call it Glasgow, but just generally, it's pronounced as if it doesn't have a W at the end, so it's just Glasgow.
Right. Okay. All right. So
Glasgow.
So I've never actually. So I've been to Edinburgh when I was in high school. Yeah. We did a trip that started in Earl's Court in London and made our way up, and then we flew out of Glasgow back to Heathrow and flew home.
And that's pronounced as if it's written. That's pronounced if it's written Edinburgh. It's just Edinburgh.
Okay. Because where I in New England where I grew up, a lot of the pronunciations of things come from their UK counterparts. But I think, Edinburgh. I think it would be Edinburgh. I think would be one that's probably how it would have been pronounced. Because like certain ones
probably because most Americans either pronounce it Edinburgh or Edinburgh.
Geez. Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be in terms of my encountering American people. But that seems to be the two pronunciations you get, and of course, obviously, because the Scottish language is slightly different to like English, and we've got like our own words. We've got our own, not just slang words, but we've got plenty of slang words. But also on top of slang words, we've got like our own words, as well, Scots words, and so I guess, and because some of the pronunciations. Also because some of the pronunciations, even though they're not necessarily Gaelic words, come from Gaelic or whatever, and there's a kind of mix of that. So yeah, some of the pronunciations are different to how you would assume they are if it's just an English word, because we use a kind of mad mixture of different pronunciations. But
that makes sense. Yeah, because like one of the things I noticed is in New England, like for example, one of the cities is Worcester. After its UK counterpart, but down here
it makes the sauce. Do you get the sauce?
Right, Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, we get that as well. Yeah, so
you get the sauce. I just don't know what you get in America.
Yes. Oh no, Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, it's big here in America as well.
It's a thing. Oh,
yes. But the thing is, almost nobody knows how to pronounce it. they Worcestershire, like
Oh yeah. Because it is weird. It's a weird word because you end up kind of like because it comes out kind of Worcestershire.
right, exactly. I think the only reason why we can pronounce it in New England is because of the city Worcester, and so then it's just you just add sheer on the end and you've got it, Worcestershire. But like here in Pennsylvania, they pronounce it Worcester.
Oh.
Right, and so then it's Worcestershire. Obviously that doesn't work. It's not what it is.
Yeah.
It is interesting how that happened, and I don't
Yeah,
know
it's interesting.
from a language standpoint why it is that New England, because the thing down here in Pennsylvania, also, one is that there's more Welsh people that settled here. So there's names like Bala Kinward, Bryn Mawr, things like that. But also they use more of the abbreviate or like the nicknames or like the short versions of things, whereas in New England they use the long name. Like for example, it's Berkshire County in Massachusetts, but it's Berks County down here in Pennsylvania. Or Buckingham, it's Bucks County down here in Pennsylvania. They don't call it Buckingham and Bucks for short. It's just always Bucks. So it is interesting, like how some of those things have worked out with when people from the UK settled over here in America.
Yeah, it's interesting how these things evolve, and like I like kind of pretending to be mad about like people pronouncing Scottish town names wrong, but it's just jokes. I mean, like we've all got. I mean, you I don't expect people to know how Scottish people pronounce things or whatever. It's just funny to kind of wind people up about it, and I would find it equally amusing if people winding me up about pronouncing New Zealand name wrongs or American names wrong or whatever. I think it's just one of those funny things that you can like banter back and forth with friends or whatever.
I totally agree. I think if I were living in Edinburgh for a long time, then you should pick up how to say it, right? Like because you're there.
That's true. That's true. If you've been there for 10 years and you were still calling it Edinburgh or Edinburgh, then you're probably.
Exactly.
Sort that
out. Exactly. Right. Well, yeah. Now, I guess back. I mean, so I guess one of the things we'll say is it's the one thing Seagal never tried, because there's a video that came out recently. I didn't see it, but it talked about Seagal's different accents. Definitely an accent he's never tried is Edinburgh or Glaswegian. He's never tried any kind of Scottish accent.
No, he's never tried that. Yeah, I don't think he's tried any British accent.
No.
In his time. No, because like no. He's tried a few kind of like European accents. I guess we've got French in this, and then but I think his preference is pretending not to be white. Right. I think that's like so either doing something Asian or the kind of Far East Asian, that kind of area of Asia, kind of China, Japan, Korea, Thailand, or pretending to be black, which he does quite a lot. I don't know, or pretending to be like some sort of like Native American or Inuit or something like that. So I think that's what he's kind of most keen to do, and is runs him into quite a lot of trouble just because it comes off as weird and icky and stupid.
Exactly. Now I do want to get into when we see him early in the movie when he's like walking around the woods and he saves the falcon or whatever that's in a trap. Did you? I was worried. I don't know if you had the same fear that it was going to go in this sort of appropriating Native American kind of thing.
Oh, I did. Yeah, there is a bit of that. And I did think, oh, this is like. Yes, that opening scene. I remember the first time I watched it. The opening scene was like, oh, this has a bit of a non-deadly ground vibe, right. So I was expecting him to, go throughout the movie wearing a kind of big native jacket or something, like he does in on Deadly Ground. Yeah, but that doesn't happen. We get over that pretty quickly. But yes, I definitely got that vibe as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Now, one thing I wanted to get into is the trafficking element of this, because obviously trafficking is like the subject du jour of low budget direct to video movies now. It's just every movie's got to have trafficking, and obviously the main thing is, right, you don't need a Matt Schultz to be a baddie if you've got a trafficking baddie, right? Like it's just Matt Schultz is sort of a cherry on top as a baddie, but it's a baddie's sufficiently bad if they're trafficking. But the thing I think that this movie did, they kind of did two things with the trafficking. I think one, they seem to hit on the point that I think people who actually investigate and try to stop trafficking rings in this country, or not just in the United States, but in the world, try to hit on, and that they don't like the way trafficking is depicted in movies today, is that it's generally people who are forgotten by society, right? That end up in these situations. A lot of time, I shouldn't say generally, but oftentimes it's that. It's again, an orphanage in Eastern Europe would be a great place for Matt Schultz to get young women young girls for his thing. Whereas in America, a lot of times it's depicted as these like middle class white women who end up being kidnapped and taken to Mexico, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's really not how that works. It's not like there's these, Mexican cartel members like, patrolling like parking lots in suburban America to get trafficking victims. So this part at least covered that part well. I think the part that it was weird was like this whole auction element of it, because again, one of the unfortunate realities of trafficking is that the money is made by the Johns and that kind of thing, and that these the victims are worth a certain amount of money that's more than just auctioning them off. And I think when they do the auctioning part, it makes it changes fundamentally what trafficking is. I think I don't know. That's my feeling. I feel like when they're drawing attention to a really bad issue like that, I always kind of feel like when they sort of try to, I don't know, make it this sort of this grand thing, like rich people are calling and bidding on on girls or things like that. Just I don't know. It takes away from what like the real insidiousness of it. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things that like you got to be very careful. I guess you got to be very careful what you portray in your action movie, because there's certain things that like you can portray as like even kind of like terrorists of certain sorts, and you can portray in action movies as kind of like absurdist or like or abstracted from reality enough that it doesn't like make you think of like real crimes or like real terrorism. Like you often watch an action movie with terrorists, and it doesn't, like, if you, for example, just pick out a random example out the air, kind of like if you're watching, say, like True Lies, you're not like thinking about the real crimes of Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever, like it's just like there's like you're abstracted away enough from reality that you're in that kind of comic book cartoonish reality that action movies tend to exist in. However, like there's something particular about the horrificness of human trafficking that like you're always kind of more aware of it, or you're more kind of, or it's more on your mind, or you're more like kind of like, oh, I hope they don't take this too unseriously, but then also I kind of don't want it to be here because like I don't want this to be too serious either, because like I think like the mistake that I feel like, and maybe this is just to my taste, but I think the mistake that a lot of action movies made, particularly in kind of the 2010s or whatever, where everything was a bit more late kind of 2000s, early 2010s, where everything was a bit more dour before like John Wick came along and we said, oh, action movies can be fun again or whatever. I think there's like propensity to kind of over porfaceness, which I don't, for me, doesn't work in action movies, because like predominantly, while there is very serious movies I enjoy and very serious cinema that I enjoy, predominantly I come to action movies to be entertained, and but then when it becomes to kind of bogged down in kind of human trafficking stuff, then that's very sad. And then I want it to treat it more seriously. But then if it does treat it more seriously, but it can't, because it still has to be an action movie. So it doesn't have the bandwidth to treat it as seriously as it should. So then it treats it semi-seriously and semi-stupidly. And then it comes off as just kind of like, depending on how much the mixture is, sometimes it comes off as offensive, or sometimes it comes off as just kind of like sad and kind of like just deflating in terms of like fun with your action movie. And yeah, sometimes it just comes off as wrong-headed. So I think it's just a very, I know it's like you say, it's like the subject du jour, and like I know like it's an easy shortcut, because like you don't have to do anything with your villain. You're just like, okay, this villain is like trafficking children or whatever, and like automatically they become like super evil. It's kind of like the shortcut they would do, the kind of common 90s shortcut they would do that I see in a lot of 90s action movies covering on my podcast, is like, if you want to make your villain really evil, you just have him like slap around a woman or sexually assault a woman, and that's like your shortcut to like, oh, this villain is really, really evil, and it seems to be more like they're a human trafficker, like that's the thing. So I mean, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Well. No, it totally does. And yeah, the term I use for what you're describing, I call it baddie in a can. That it's just like, you've got, another one from the 90s was poachers, right? If you're mistreating animals, that's an easy one.
That's right. Yeah. If you want to make your villain like really evil, you have them like kill a dog or something. Like, yeah.
That always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with this movie, to your point, I think they wanted to go over like the seriousness of trafficking in that sense, that like, these are young girls who have been sort of lost to society, and nobody's going to miss them if Matt Schultz brings them into his trafficking ring and sells them off. But there's one girl that just happens to have somebody who cares about her, who comes and does all this stuff. But at the same time, right, it's only her and the young man that's like, with her, or the boy that's with her, that gets saved, right? So it's to your point about trafficking. When you use it in a movie like this, is that, oh yes, this one girl just happened to have an ex-CIA agent who was completely unstoppable, that showed up and solved where she was being held through a bunch of ciphers that she wrote out there, and then rescues her and the boy that she was friends with in the orphanage, and they get to live happily ever after out in Seagal's compound out in the woods, while all the other girls that we saw who got roses from Matt Schultz, we don't know what's going on with them, right? I mean, I guess there might have been.
Yeah, that's true. And like, and if you want to kind of read between the lines and like, and come away with a sad ending, from this movie, because we have the kind of non-starter of a subplot with Nick Brimble, and because like the dynamic of that relationship seemed like Nick Brimble was essentially Matt Schultz's boss, that it gives a suggestion that like Matt, like, one head of the snake is being cut off, but the operation lives on. Like that's kind of the like that's the kind of uncomfortable feeling you come away with it. And I know it's supposed to be a happy film, happy ending. The two kids get away, whatever. But there is that kind of uncomfortable feeling as well, where you get to the end of the film and you're like, yeah, but was the operation stopped? It kind of seemed like, Nick Brimble was Mr. Elgin's character was like even further up the chain, and we don't know if he was at the top of the chain. We don't get any indication of that. There's no indication that he is actually the boss of bosses. Maybe he has a boss as well. So it does seem like there is a larger operation, and it does seem like we don't get any indication that the operation has been stopped. You know, like this criminal enterprise, this horrific trafficking ring. Has it been? Did it collapse, or was it just we just got one head of the snake, and we ride off into the sunset because the characters that the film told us to care about have been saved, but yeah, everybody else has been left to their own terrible fate. Which yeah, it's maybe reading between the lines too much for what is essentially a very silly action movie.
No, but you make a great point about it, because I think the kind of the modern movie version of trafficking, one, it's playing on these sort of conservative middle class fears of what they think trafficking is. I know Behind the Bastards did a whole feature on it, because they were essentially Robert Evans, the guy who hosts that show, different Robert Evans from the Paramount Robert Evans.
From the producer, yeah. They're
Uh,
different from the kids stay in the picture Robert Evans.
Right, exactly. He was talking about, he kind of compared like the modern trafficking panic to like old chain letters, that would be like, oh, if you don't send this to five people or these things. But like the kind of like the elaborate schemes that these people would post on Facebook, like, oh, if you find a half drunk water bottle on your car, don't touch it, because that'll mean trafficking. Or if you find a piece of cheese on your car, and it's like, well, anybody who's going to kidnap somebody isn't going to warn them, right, that it's like, where do they come up with this? But it had real consequences. Like, there was a woman who went to El Paso, and an Uber driver was driving her to her hotel, and El Paso is right on the Mexican border, so Juarez is right on the other side, and there's a lot of people that go back and forth between Juarez and El Paso. So there's going to be signs on the highway that say this many miles to Juarez. Well, she thought she was being trafficked, and she shot the Uber driver, because it's the United States and everybody's got guns. But because this concept that an Uber driver would be trafficking people, like, which is completely absurd, But I know the FBI says that these kinds of, when they investigate trafficking, these kinds of concepts obfuscate their ability to actually end real trafficking that happens on a regular basis. But I think, to your point, when you use this sort of taken model, this white middle class model of trafficking, that conservative version of trafficking, where it's just middle class women being shuttled over to Mexico, or their daughters, right? Their college age daughters who go to a party and somebody puts something in their drink, and next thing you know, they're across the border of Mexico, and some lone wolf's got to go down there and save them, right? There's that concept of it. The one thing about that concept that is nice is that, one, usually the woman is older. We're not talking about 14-year-olds, or I was watching Falcon Rising where the kids were like 12. So when you're seeing an actual mature woman in this situation, it's a little bit easier to take, but also it's a one-off situation, right? It's usually like, this one band that has this one woman, and they take them out, and the whole thing's done, and you don't have to think about other people going through it. And so I think, even though it's completely fugazi, the concept of it, and it's feeding into these sort of chain letter style fears on Facebook and stuff, I think, to your point, you almost kind of prefer it in a way, because it's a little bit easier to take in your mindless, fun action movie.
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, it needs to be separated. Like, the real world, the kind of horrific real world reality of what that is, of what trafficking is, and then this kind of like you say, this kind of fictional conservative fears of and it's almost like you say it, so it's almost become like this kind of urban legend thing of they're coming after, like you say, these kind of white blonde suburban like people, which just tends to be like any criminal, these criminals pick on people that are the easiest to pick on. What doesn't matter what criminal you are. The burglars pick the house that has the worst security. They're not going to they're not going to Mission Impossible it if they can just go into a house easily jimmy a lock and get in. Because that's easier. Because that so they're going to take from the most vulnerable people of society, like the people that have been cast aside, or or overlooked for whatever reason, and it's horrific. And then we've got this kind of fantasy of it. It's a bit like, I remember when I was growing up, there was a lot of kind of like, there is like real crime in like Eastern Europe or whatever, of like gangs and stuff like that. But like I remember it was like this urban legend of like, if you went to any of these Eastern European countries, Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, whatever, you'd be kidnapped, and you'd wake up in a bathtub with your kidney missing, kind of
Yes.
kind of thing, and you're like, but that's like that's a horror story. That's a like that. There's not a spate of that, like people wouldn't go on holiday to these places if that was happening like all the time. Sure, those places have crime, they have gangsters, whatever, but like, and again, so it's become kind of like one of those things, like one of those kind of like urban legend kind of boogeyman kind of things. And like you say, the worst thing about it becoming like this kind of boogeyman thing is like it impacts on the cracking down of like the real trafficking, what's happening in the real world. And I realize we've got kind of like I've kind of got on my soapbox a little bit, and we've got like maybe a little bit heavy for a film covering, again, a very silly Seagal movie that has him sending pen pal letters to a 14-year-old in Poland who he may or may not have a psychic connection with. Like it's so again, I guess we should put that to the fore. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I just think that like if action movies want to go in this direction, then I think they should be very careful about it. And I think like I'm quite glad that like in some ways theatrically we have like moved away from that kind of wave, like the kind of post-Taken wave of like these kind of like stony faced, kind of very humorless, kind of like quasi, kind of pretentious, because they come across as if they're giving some sort of like social commentary when they're absolutely not. It's like the social commentary they're giving is like completely zero calories, but they're coming across as if they have an intellect and something to say, and they don't. So like, and then you're just dragging it down, and also like, I'm glad we've moved away from that. The other thing that I think kind of Taken kind of had an impact or kind of negatively affected action movies is just like, oh my god, just the visuals, just like everything had to be grey and dull. And like, I'm really glad that like the likes of the John Wicks and stuff have like brought both fun and color back to like mainstream action cinema in the last kind of like 10, 12 years, whatever. So yeah, I think you can tell I'm really not a fan of Taken and Taken inspired films.
No, I totally agree. And I think again, what's kind of, I think what struck me about the trafficking in this movie was the fact that it had, I think it almost like tried to split the baby, I guess, which is probably not a great term to use here, but
probably not.
No, but right, but it's like they wanted the serious part of it, and the serious part comes through. I mean, when the young character, the character Irena is doing her she's doing her video kind of thing, and Matt Schultz is like right there, and again, to Matt Schultz's credit, he did not pull any punches with this baddie, and so you're watching the scene, then like her friend is doing her video, and she starts getting upset, and then she tries to run off, and it's like it's like for your popcorn Seagal movie. It's like some really serious stuff, and it's almost like the movie itself. I wonder if that's what the edit was. I wonder if the movie was going more in that direction, and people watched it and they were like, no, you can't do that. We got to goof it up a little bit, or we got to make it a little less serious.
Because it's still a Seagal movie, and you've still got like Seagal in the mix, so automatically like less serious just because like you've got like the Seagal bingo card at work, you know.
Yeah.
So like, you know, and it's hard to make it any more. Yeah. So
Yeah, I wonder if more of these there was more along the lines, and so maybe that's why that tonally it feels off. That they were like
it kind of
really
flip flop back and forth between this kind of like absurdist silliness and this kind of like semi serious kind of trafficking thing. Yeah,
right,
crime thriller.
yes, no, exactly, and I think that's. But I think too, to kind of as we were talking about, it's like that whole thing of like why it's I don't know, like again why it works, but I don't know how to explain it. Like why,
Yeah.
like again, why I watched these ripoffs. Like I watched one recently with Ty from Coma. It's called Shrapnel, where Jason Patrick is just horrible in it. And it's like this idea, his daughter and her friend go to Mexico to party, and of course they get drugged, and their cartel has them, and then he and Cam Gigandet go down there with weapons. It's one of those deals where like. Depending on if you're a brown person or you're a white person, you can kill people or you can't, right? So it's like Jason Patrick can't get hit as a white guy. All these cartel guys are walking around shooting, but the black police officer shows up and he gets it. It's and then when Cam Gigandet shows up, neither of them can get hit. They can't. It has like all the bad stuff in it. And Jason Patrick's bringing nothing to the table. He's just crabby the whole time. Is what it seems like. And so it's like. Yeah, when you see that version of trafficking, you're just like, oh god, it was just like it's the same old tired retread stuff. But in a way, at least you come out of the end of the movie and you're not like thinking like, oh well, what happened to all the other kids? Like at least you come out and you're like, okay, the main character, Jason Patrick's daughter and her friend, they come back home, and there's a sense that maybe they have some PTSD, but usually when the credits roll, there's really no such thing as PTSD. Usually you're safe at home, and suddenly there's no trauma from what you experienced there, right? That's the kind of that. Yeah. Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was the end fight scene, because I think there's a few things that happen in that end fight scene that are important to discuss with his end fight with Matt Schultz. I mean, I guess the first thing is that Schultz has been established as somebody that can potentially rival Seagal, at least with his ability to fence, right? Like that's he's as a
yes, there is an earlier fencing sequence, he's shown to be a good fencer.
Yeah. Yeah. So we know swords are going to come up at some point. So the funny thing is the way the fight starts is that the two of them have each other at gunpoint, and they do the classic, well, let's settle this like men or whatever. Let's settle this with our fists kind of thing. And I guess maybe as a plot point, it works in the sense that maybe Matt Schultz's character thinks, well, if he's got his gun on me and I got my gun on him, there's a better chance of me winning if we put our guns down. That Seagal might be a better shot than me or something. I don't know what made him decide not want to have his gun pointed at Seagal. But anyway, that part, they put their guns down and then they start running. And of course, there's just swords everywhere. Matt Schultz has swords.
Because he must collect swords.
Right. Yes. So, but now one of the things is there's like a tussle between the two of them, and Schultz is able to like get an elbow in on Seagal. And
I was impressed by that as well. Like he gets like a few hits in, which is like, as we've learned watching all of these, is quite rare.
I think I want to say after this, because Submerged comes after this one. Submerged was 2005, and I want to say after this movie, I don't know if anybody gets a hit on him again after this movie. I'm not sure.
Not in any films where he is the lead actor. Obviously the kind of only example in cinematic history of him being defeated is obviously Machete.
Right.
But like taking Machete out of it, no, I don't think anybody like hits him post this really.
Yeah.
If we take Machete out of the equation, yeah.
So, I mean, I guess the Keeper, right? In the Keeper, his buddy gets the drop on him, but
oh yes, briefly. That's right. That's right.
It's like he sets, but he shoots him or something, right? He doesn't actually. It's not like a fight where he gets a hit in on him in a fight. I don't think.
No, I think you're right. And even back in the day, not many people like managed to hit him that much. Like mainly he was just destroying people, even like in in his theatrical films as well. The only one of the few fights that like I've seen in a Seagal movie, and like it's a really uneven. Even this fight's a really uneven. So mainly just Seagal beating him up. But like I think like one of the closest that I've seen to like an even fight in a Seagal film is possibly his fight with Everett McGill in Under Siege 2.
Right. Yes.
Where Everett McGill does get some shots in and like is briefly looks quite dominant, but like but then Seagal obviously just destroys him after. But that's kind of the closest I can think of off the top of my head to something that could be sit in the same realm as an even fight, even though it's a completely uneven beatdown for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I guess here too, Schultz gets a slash in on his chest.
Yeah.
Which
Again, yeah. Between that and the elbows, he's doing better than most, than like 90% of Seagal opponents. Yeah.
Right, exactly. The other thing too, Seagal's outfit. I can't remember if this was the time period when Hollywood celebrities were going to like things like the Oscars with the tieless tux. Like I remember Tom Hanks going with the tieless tux because that's what Seagal is wearing in this.
I feel like that was like a kind of early 2000s thing. It does seem like this kind of era, yeah.
Yeah. So Seagal, I mean, I wonder if he got invited because he still would have probably been invited to those kinds of things back then.
Probably, I guess. Yeah, he's not so far out of his kind of limelight years to kind of. So he'd probably still be invited to a bunch of big celebrity galas and events and stuff like that, and the Academy Awards. Probably in this era, I would assume, because like we discussed, he's only a few years away from his last theatrical hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so he may have known the trend and said, "Oh, I'm going to go tieless. I'm going to do the tieless tux to this, embassy gala thing that he goes to." But he's still in the tieless tux, which actually ends up working out well for him, right? That when he goes to accost Schultz, and so Schultz slashes him underneath the collar of the tieless tux. And I guess later it's revealed that he did break the skin when he does that because we see pink on the coat or on the shirt after. But Seagal's gotten a sword himself, and now, of course, I mean, what kind of sword fighting style would Seagal have if he was in a situation like this? Of course, it would be samurai of some sort or some kind of Asian sword fighting style, right? He wouldn't, it wouldn't be like Schultz, fencing or whatever.
No, of course, he's obviously, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's obviously always going to be some sort of kind of samurai fighting style when it comes to Seagal, because he quite often circles back to his years in Japan, when he lived in Japan, for sure. And like maybe he had just seen, because like at that time, obviously there has been many Zatoshi films over the years. But in that time, just the year before, there had been a Takeshi Kitano version of Zatoshi that came out in 2003. So maybe he'd seen that and was inspired by that. That's what I liked. That's what I like to think. That's what if people are looking for a good film, the Takeshi Kitano Zatoshi. Is definitely a good film. I can recommend that, as I can recommend many Takeshi Kitano films. If you've not checked out Hanabi or Sonnenschein or Violent Cop, definitely recommend checking them out. Definitely much better than this movie.
Yes. If you need a palate cleanser, Takeshi Kitano, he's going to give you your he'll give you your palate cleanser for sure. Yes, but to your point though, because when we did going back to Out for a Kill, where there's the barbershop scene with the guy crawling all over the wall and everything, who looks like Yahoo Serious or something. That's that was, I think, Seagal being inspired by like Crouching Tiger and those movies at the
Yeah,
time.
it could because obviously like wire work was big at the time, and yeah, like the whole kind of like um the whole kind of like Matrix, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and then I think uh, I think Hero was 2002, so yeah, Hero would have been out as well. House of Flying Daggers, I don't think was till '05, but I think Hero was out. So they had all been like significant hits. So like, yeah, I think definitely inspired by that kind of wire work trend that kind of hit um, Hollywood in the early 2000s. Obviously, they've been doing it for a long time in Hong Kong. But yeah, so I think definitely inspired by that. So yeah, even if Seagal wasn't directly inspired by it, maybe like the producers or whatever might have, and also like maybe samurais were in the air as well because obviously the Tom Cruise Last Samurai, that would have been, I think, '03 as well, or maybe it came out the same year, maybe it was '04, but anyway, it was around this time as well, so maybe there was samurais were maybe in the air at the time.
Yeah, well, to your point too about the Zatoichi film that Katano did at that time,
Hmm.
I had forgot this. I never seen that one, but I'm looking it up on IMDb, and there's scenes that take place in the snow, and
Yes. There is. There's quite dramatic scenes in the story. Yes, the Katano Zatoichi film it's very good. It's very good. I mean, if you've not seen it, I would definitely recommend it as a watch.
yeah, it's
But yeah.
available on Pluto here in the U.S.
Hmm.
So it's definitely one that I could pick up. But I'm wondering if the director of the film, so that director's name was Po Chi Leon, and I wonder if he was inspired by that because the location where the fight happens is this big kind of palatial, it's like a kind of old palace or something, or old castle that's completely white, and so you've got like that relief. It has the same kind of I say contrasting effect that the snow has in the way it looked. I wonder if he was if maybe it wasn't Seagal, if the director himself was inspired by that movie. And
Possibly because like you're looking at the director, yeah, it seems like he is British, but he did like a lot of work in Hong Kong. Yeah, entirely possible. Yeah.
yeah, because I think that's the thing about this scene is that it has the hallmarks of your classic end fight with Seagal and whatever baddie. Like for example, it's a sword fighting thing, but like Seagal is appropriating all the different Asian sword fighting styles, and then when he and Schultz hit at each other, it's really just like hitting each other's swords, but like it looks
Mm,
really obvious. It's like why would Schultz slash at the back, or like the back shoulder of Seagal? Where Seagal blocks it. It's like you wouldn't really swing for the back shoulder, but you would swing if you think the sword's going to be there. You're going to hit it. So it's like, excuse me. There's that back and forth there. Well, at the same time, you get these really great overhead shots, and you get this really beautiful look in that setting. So it's amazing how you get your classic kind of, I don't want to say dud of an end fight with Seagal, because this is probably, like you said, this is probably better than most end fights you get with Seagal. Um, but it's like the contrast of like how well it's shot compared to how well it's carried out is really interesting.
yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And it's very. I mean, I don't know what they were influenced by, but also like the the end of the fight is very, that kind of like him striking the final blow, and then like Matt Schultz's character kind of not realizing he's been killed, and then realizing that a fatal blow has been struck, and that kind of slight delay, that feels very kind of Hong Kong or whatever, or like the kind of Hong Kong or Japanese cinema. But then thinking about it again, I guess it's also just a kind of a take on the the fight between the bride and Oren in Kill Bill as well. Like that same kind of delayed effect of like striking the final blow and then kind of, you know, and then kind of like, ooh, there's that kind of like brief moment of like, who struck the final blow, you know, like, and then it's like, oh, the bad guy is, or bad woman in the case of Lauren, like it has been defeated, you know what I mean?
Yes, no, for sure. And I mean, this is where I talked about Seagal committing to the bit, because after he delivers the final blow, he just stands there, posing with a sword behind him, and he kind of holds that moment. And then, we get this big overhead shot of Schultz lying on the ground, and then we get the kind of close in with the blood sort of contrasting with the white of the castle. And again, Seagal
This is a pretty cool shot. It's a pretty cool shot. Yeah.
It's amazing with these movies, and I think this is the other thing that's interesting about the early Seagal early Seagal DTV, this 2000s period versus what we get in the 2010s with him, where it's sort of like Keone Waxman kind of comes in and just sort of accepts his fate as the Seagal movie director, and just does the movie and gets in and gets out, and he's like, I'm not worried about like my art as a director. I'm I've sort of sacrificed it for my 10 picture deal with whatever it ends up being. It seems like, because we go through so many different directors in this early period, and they're all still trying to put their stamps on the movie, whether it's the director here, or like Anthony Hickox in the past, or Mink. I'm trying to think of the different directors. I mean, obviously Fauntleroy, and was it Coish, the Coish trilogy? We talked,
the Coish trilogy. That was hard.
Exactly. There's this sort of this attempt, right, of these directors to like. To put their stamps on the movie. And I think, you get these moments like we're getting here. I mean, I think these may be some of the best moments that we're getting here from Po Chi Leung.
I think so. And I like the way this is shot, and it's very dramatic, and this kind of white, kind of almost amphitheater looking, like it's in the kind of palace or whatever. Like it's I think it visually looks interesting, and it is fun to watch. And also, we can't end this podcast before noting that, like, and this feels like maybe it was the director, maybe the director wanted this and like to make it a certain way, but it feels like a very Seagal thing, to make it seem like kind of the reason Seagal struck the final blow and not the villain, beyond just being like you're watching a Seagal film, so of course he's going to win, is the reason is they try to make it like mystical, because when he strikes the final blow, you hear an eagle call sound.
That's right.
Which is so entertaining. And both the first time I watched it and this time, I laughed when that happened, because it was just like he strikes the final blow, and then you just hear a kind of.
That's right. Yes,
my
that's
best
right.
attempt at an eagle call sound. It's not that good, but it's better. It sounds better in the movie. So like that, which is one of my favorite things in the film. The other favorite thing that I should mention before we end the podcast is like in the gunfight in the brothel. I don't know why, it just kind of looks goofy when Seagal does like a kind of tuck and roll and then shoots. Like he comes out this doorway, does a tuck and roll, and then like pops up and shoots, and it just looks very goofy, but I love it. I'm like, that's one of my favorite moments in the film.
No, I agree. I love that as well. The other thing about the fight too that I want to touch on was that I don't know if I was the only one who caught this, but or if it was just me, or if this really didn't happen, but it was just me thinking it. It felt like Matt Schultz went from not being, kind of being in an even spot with Seagal to when they go out of the courtyard, suddenly he's got like a busted nose and like a big bruise on his face. And I didn't remember Seagal delivering any kind of blows to give him that busted nose and the bruise on his face. It felt like there's,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. That's what it felt like to me as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're not Mandela affecting ourselves, but but yeah, that's what it felt like to me too.
Yeah, so I feel like there's probably more in that fight scene as well that was edited, and so, but which I don't know why.
Probably, yeah.
What,
I don't know. Yeah, they make it go longer. It's the best thing in the movie. So like, yeah, stretch it out.
Exactly. So who knows with that? Then of course the very end of the movie, we get the epilogue where we find out that Irena and her friend are living on Seagal's wooded estate. While he's out helping animals, they're hanging out, and there's this one scene of like they end the movie and there's like this sort of like fade in still shot of Seagal on the screen
Yes.
with the bird. I think right.
Superimposed with the freeze frame of like the bird, and we get like one last kind of eagle call, like like moment to make him seem just as epic as possible. So yes, again made me laugh. Seems very kind of classic Seagal. Like again, we're kind of pointing to like he is the most noble man who lives in perfect balance with nature. Like that's what we're saying at the end of this movie. And they're like, all right.
We've had a few of these freeze frame end moments as well. Because I think Flight of Fury didn't that have one?
Yeah, that had the freeze frame ending. Yeah, we've had a few kind of Murder She Wrote endings where like with the freeze frame ending, or probably more inspired by like the Rocky movies or whatever rather than Murder She Wrote. But
it's this thing with these Seagal movies that you just don't know. I think it's sort of like these. You just never know what you're going to get, and it's almost like I think the people making the movies don't even know. Like, how do we end this thing? All right, let's do.
I think so. I think like I think sometimes they do have trouble. I think sometimes they've got Seagal for a certain number of days, and then the days run out, and they're like, yeah, but we've still got to end this thing. Like, how do we do that? Like, he's the main character. He's like the person the whole story revolves around. Like, and it's like, yeah, well, we can just have the secondary character detective, have a letter narrated to her by the little girl, and then we just cut to a freeze frame of his face. Does that sound like an ending? I guess.
Exactly.
Sure, let's do that.
Right. Because I guess I mean I don't know when it comes to selling these movies if they need to be a certain length. Like if because this one is at 126 is what it said. It was at 86 minutes, and I wonder if you dip below the 80-minute mark, or even if it's a little bit higher. I don't know what the number is for a place like Blockbuster to be like, no, we can't sell your movie. I know Albert Pune with his urban movies, because a crate of film was lost going to from Eastern Europe to America. He had to cobble together with those three movies, just do as best he could, and those ones are like in the 60 to 70 minute range, and somehow they still made it out to distributors. But I do wonder, because it feels like they pad these things out a little bit to just get it over this certain goal line of whatever it is.
I think so. Because it does feel remarkable, like how much padding a lot of these films have. Yeah. Considering like you say, the movie is like 85, 86 minutes, and then that's including credits. Right. So like the actual movie itself is probably more like 83 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. But no, I think you're right. I think like they just have like a certain goal in mind of like it's gotta be at least over 80. But like, so if we come in at like between like somewhere between 80 and like 95, then that's good. Yeah. And just anywhere in that range we'll accept.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, if we're closer to like 77 minutes, what can we add on? Well, okay, we got 3 minutes for credits. That's good. Okay, so then what else? Well, what if we do this epilogue thing? Yeah, that's perfect. That's and to your point, they weren't getting Seagal back to do that epilogue thing. They just used
no, absolutely not. They're just scrabbling for like, oh, okay, we still got Agnieszka for a couple of days. We still got this little girl who's played by Ida Nowakowska.
Yeah,
I hope that's near the pronunciation of her last name.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's how this movie ends. Is I mean, there's of course a song at the end. It's so when I watched this on YouTube, the credits were cut, so I didn't get to hear the whole song. But it's
Mm-hmm.
we get these like a lot of times there are these sort of these haunting female singer songs at the
Mm-hmm.
end. If it's not Seagal's own band or whatever doing the song.
Yeah, if it's not like a kind of like, yeah, it's that, or it's a very it's either it's that or it's Seagal, or it's something that Seagal clearly likes, which is kind of like, kind of like white guy blues music, like
Right?
that's like that's
Yes.
like like that's his main thing. So we get a lot of like kind of white guy blues rock tunes at the end of
Yeah.
these films, or yeah, like you say, it's like a kind of ballady female, you know, singer songwriter thing. Yeah. Um, so an interesting mix. It's either like power ballads or blues rocks numbers. That tends to be the how you end your Seagal films. Um, um, Although, yeah, like you say, I think some of them end with Seagal's actual music, from the albums he released, like that classic songs from the Crystal Cave. Um,
Yeah. Oh, good old Seagal. Well,
oh,
I know.
yeah.
Well, so at this point, anything that we missed, or anything else that you wanted to touch on that we may not have covered in this one?
Um, no, because I mentioned the tuck and roll thing, and I mentioned the eagle sounds and stuff like that. I do like looking into like what actors have done like post these films, because obviously there's a lot of the actors that I don't know,
Yeah.
and so I'm aware that like Agnieszka is like it's been on Polish TV and stuff like that, and the little girl who played Irina, apparently she went on to do a lot of Polish television, and according to her Wikipedia, she is the only person to have been a contestant, a judge, and a presenter on the Polish version of So You Think You Can Dance, which I thought was a fun fact.
That's that's nice. Yeah. Well, she'll always have this movie to her. I mean, one of the what I completely forgot to mention was the impromptu surgery scene. Maybe we'll go quick on that. Is that the character of the police officer
Oh,
character?
yes, 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 yes. Detective Lato, Detective Cassia Lato.
Yeah.
She gets shot in the shoulder. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And Seagal, of course, instead of taking her to the hospital, because even if they're worried about somebody getting to her in the hospital, he could be there in the hospital while she's getting
Mhm.
actual surgery done by an actual surgeon. But no, he just immediately goes to turn on the gas stove, starts putting knives on the gas stove, has her drink a bunch of alcohol, and then uses one knife to pry the bullet out and the other one to cauterize the wound. But then also, I think from the editing standpoint, I'm wondering if this scene where she gets shot is supposed to happen later in the movie, because then there's that scene where Seagal's leaving her and the boy, and the boy wants him to give her a hug. So he gives her a side hug right on where the wound should be, and she didn't seem to care. And then when the boy comes over, she puts her arm around the boy, and his head goes right where the wound should be as well. And I get that when you get shot in a movie and then Seagal pulls the bullet out and cauterizes the wound, that you should be back to normal right away. But it kind of felt like no, it felt like they put those in the wrong place, because at the very least they should have been like, no, don't hug him there. But no, that was what happened.
Yeah. Um, yeah. The other thing, this is a side tangent. No, it's not a side tangent away from the film. It's still to do with the film. But like, the other thing I thought about when watching that, as well as thinking, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that like she seems to have recovered from this wound quite so quickly, and she seems to have, like you say, when she does, hugging the boy and hugging Seagal or whatever, she doesn't like flinch or react at all as if she's been hurt in that arm. But the other thing I was thinking as well was that she can really handle her alcohol, because before she goes to the shootout with Seagal, like Seagal meets her while she's like mid drinking in a bar, and it's suggested that this is not the first vodka shot that she's done.
Right.
So she's already done a bunch of vodka shots, gone out for this shootout, got shot, and then Seagal forces more alcohol, more vodka down her neck. So I was thinking, this woman has drunk a lot of vodka. But she seemed fine on that as well. She didn't even seem drunk, and I was like, man, she's probably drunk like a near bottle of vodka, and fair play to her.
Exactly. Yeah, and the whole thing was ridiculous, and I'm wondering if they did that whole thing just because they didn't want to shoot in a hospital, and
maybe there's some cost cutting there, I guess, so they kind of limited their locations because they were like, they had their budget, and they were like, we can fit this many locations, we can do setups in this many locations, but we can't afford an extra further location. So if Seagal's character can just like stitch her up, that would be great.
That's what she does. That's what she does. Well, Scott, I guess we'll wrap this one here, because I mean, this one, wow. So we have now essentially at this point we've gone through a good chunk of like the early Seagal. I think we don't have many left in this period to do. I think we've because we both talked about we're not going to do the Patriot because I covered that one on an episode earlier, and then you've covered it on your podcast as well. So I think people will say like, oh, well, the Patriot is, you guys haven't done the Patriot. We're also debating about whether or not we want to do the Ticker. We're not sure if we're going to do that one. So at this point, from Flight of Fury in 2007, we've done everything from there. I guess Clementine might be another one people are counting, but other than Clementine and Ticker, we've kind of hit everything from 2003's The Foreigner through 2007's Flight of Fury.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And then I think, if we do like Urban Justice next, I think that ticks off 2007, and then we've pretty much covered that whole 2003 to 2007 early DTV period for Seagal.
Yeah,
and then we'll be jumping into the kind of later 2000s and then delving into the 2010s.
Right, and I think there's an interesting we've done a couple. We've done Pistol Whipped, and we've done The Keeper from this sort of that middle period between. There's almost like a bridge between the 2000s and then the 2010s with all the Keone Waxman movies that kind of become the slog when we get there.
So we've not got that many 2000s films. We get into the 2010s, like most of the rest of the ones we've got to cover is 2010s, because like you say, all the very early DTV ones, we were debating Ticker.
Yeah.
But then in terms of the other 2000s ones we've got to cover, we've got Urban Justice, Kill Switch, and Driven to Kill.
Yeah.
And then after that, we're into the 2010s.
Yeah.
And we're just in the 2010s after that. So we've really not got many 2000s ones left. Just basically those three, and then if we want to do Ticker as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Ticker we may do. The other one too is Against the Dark that we were talking about, because I covered that one on an episode with Sean Leroy.
Oh, that's true. We decided not to do that one because you'd already covered that one.
Yeah.
And I've already seen it, and I'm really not sure I can sit through it again.
Okay. That's one that we saved till the end. If we do end up doing it, we'll park it. But
we'll park it. We'll do it in another couple of years, because we still got because we tend to do like kind of 6 a year or something, so we're still probably going to do this for another 3 or 4 years.
We still got a ways to go, but I mean, it's amazing to look at this point that we've come this far in this thing.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. I mean, this is our I worked it out today that I've been on your podcast 15 times, and 14 of those times have been to cover Seagal films.
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely so. And to give people an idea of where this started from, you came on for your second episode to do a Seagal film. I think we did The Keeper for that one.
Yeah, the Keeper was the first of the scale ones we did
Yeah,
in this series.
there was kind of a joking back and forth about DTV Seagals. I think somebody else was mentioning it was when you were posting about the episode, and somebody else that you follow mentioned it, and you were and there was kind of a joke of like, well, at some point you got to watch them all, and you were like, well, if I'm going to watch them all, why don't we just discuss them all? It's like, I mean, because I had to that point not covered that many Seagal movies on the site. I did The Patriot and I did Against the Dark, but I don't think I had done really any other Seagals. I had the Comeuppance guys on to talk about top 5 Seagal, but I can't remember if I did that on my podcast or theirs. So there was a whole bunch of these Seagal movies available, and so now we're making our way through them. Yeah, it's been quite an experience so far, and we still got some ways to go.
That's true. But yes, as we discussed, there's a few that we're thinking we probably won't cover. Against the Dark, The Patriot, because we both previously covered it. Clementine, and also we're not dipping into any of the True Justice stuff. I don't know if that's disappointing to people, but yeah, we're just going to park that as like that's its own TV thing. We're just focusing on the movies. I mean, unless the people like absolutely demand it of us, and in 5 years' time we're like, okay, we're starting off again, and we're doing it. But yeah, that's where we're at the moment. So like, if we are including Ticker, we got another 22 to go. Yeah, we are. We are getting through them.
We're getting through them for sure. Yes, okay. And I will point out, I did cover a True Justice, movie /2 episode thing. With
yes, no, I listened to that episode. I listened to that episode. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So I'm aware you did cover one of the True Justices.
But I think that might be it. Like I think that might be the time. Because it was funny because Mitch, I think you and I were kind of starting to do this process. We'd been doing them, and so I was talking to Mitch about episodes to come on, and I was like, well, I don't want to do because I think that happened. I think the True Justice one in one of the Seagal ones that we did, they came out pretty close together. So I think it was like kind of like a lot of Seagal at once on the podcast. But
I guess it is. But yeah, no. So like if people want to know what our plan is, we're just covering the film. So you don't expect any True Justice.
Right.
Don't expect us to start doing watch throughs of Lawman episodes. Like
exactly.
Just doing the movies, man.
No, and the one thing is we did get a long break because he hasn't done a movie since 2019, but I guess he's got a few things in development now, so he might be back in it. Yeah, but those might be also things that we leave towards the end as well. Like I don't, if he puts out anything new, I think those are things that we'll park as well because I think. Anything that he does that's new is probably going to be very different from other stuff. I think there's a couple others too, actually, that maybe we'll consider maybe skipping to because like China Salesman is an interesting one. And it's more of a Mike Tyson movie, and it's also more of like a China propaganda movie that just has a little bit of Seagal in it. So that might not be worth doing either. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I also, I mean, like that one. I remember hearing you talk about that one before, and I was like, yeah, because it sounds like more of a Mike Tyson movie and kind of like this kind of Chinese propaganda thing. Also, it is, also I think if I remember correctly, it's like 110 minutes or something like that. Yes, that's a long one. Yes, it's a much longer one, which is 110-minute film doesn't usually faze me, but when it comes to Seagal films, that's an intimidating runtime.
It was a long one. I think it actually might even be longer than that. I think it was.
Oh, okay.
I think it was up there. I was trying to see if I could find it, but it's oh, there it is. Okay. Yes, it's yes. No, it's not 110 minutes. It's 100. It's essentially 10 minutes short. Oh, you're right. No, yeah, you're right. 110 minutes. Yeah, hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
110.
that's 100 minutes. I was like, yeah, sorry, I was like, looking at it from the numbers, and I was like, no, yeah, so
Yeah.
almost two
Gotcha.
hours. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a
Yeah.
rough one for sure. Yeah, 86 minutes is a good Seagal length, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good, and we as much as we ragged on this film, it has got some fun stuff in it.
Yeah.
The there's not, in terms of like, if you're an action nut and you're craving the action, this isn't like really that high on action, but you do get at least two fun sequences. You get the brothel shootout, which is pretty fun, and you get that final fight, which is pretty fun. It's not a lot to hang on to, but it is something. And then in terms of like the Seagal silliness, just the mad absurdity of this pen pal relationship with this 14-year-old Polish girl. There's just something very amusing about that. And then yeah, like all the typical Seagal bingo card stuff, and like him being this great guy, and protector of women, children, and animals, and yeah, just you get a lot of that. So this is actually quite a fun one to watch, as much as we were kind of like making fun of it. It actually goes by quite quickly. There's enough kind of like moments of just sheer like, what the fuck am I watching ridiculousness, and then there is a couple of solid action moments, kind of two key sequences that kind of shootout and the final fight are pretty fun, just on an action point. And also like, a lot of these films, if you're of a certain age, can be like a fun time capsule, and the movie making is very kind of early 2000s, and you get like a lot of like that kind of very early 2000s, kind of slow mo and all that, and you're like, oh, okay, this reminds me of that time period, kind of that. So if you grew up at this time, or you're a teenager at this time, or you're in your early 20s at this time, or whatever, I think like it gives it like a kind of little bit of nostalgia as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And right now it is available on YouTube, and it's not the best quality for YouTube, but again, when it's a Seagal movie, I think YouTube is better than paying for it. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't, I that's just my feeling. Yeah, if it's on a free streamer, that's your best bet. But YouTube, yeah, does the trick for that one. So people, I think, if you got 86 minutes to kill, you're looking for some goofy Seagal. I mean, again, other than the seriousness of the trafficking part of it, I think everything else is, and Schultz is a great baddie. I think that's the other piece too.
Yeah, Schultz is really fun.
Yeah.
Schultz is kind of the kind of standout in the movie. I think he kind of knows what movies he's in, and he's just kind of like, fuck it, I'll swing for the fences, and that's what he does, and like he's entertaining in this kind of doing this kind of creepy weirdo, over the top, everything's kind of over the top, and I hope that he had some input into that, the look of the character, as well as like just his acting, because like I feel like that kind of ties into it as well, like this big ridiculously oversized leather jacket, the kind of bottle blonde dye job that he's got, and just everything just makes him look like a douchebag, and I hope that he was kind of a part of that decision making as well, because it feels like he kind of knew what movie he was in, and played it accordingly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think he adds an element to this that later Seagal movies where you don't really get a great baddie like this, you're going to be ruining the day you lost Matt Schultz from these movies. You're gonna want Matt Schultz back when you get into the later Seagal movies for sure. Like, well, Scott, before we wrap up, anything that you wanted to plug?
Yeah, I guess. So like, I have two active podcasts and one inactive podcast. My inactive podcast is New Horror Express. I don't do anything with it anymore, but it's still up there. And there is 185 episodes worth of it, which is mainly interviews with horror creatives, be that directors, actors, novelists, screenwriters, just people working in horror, kind of independent, low budget kind of horror. So that was really fun. Did that for like 6 years. My current podcast, are all 90s action all the time, which celebrates its 5th anniversary this month, March 2026. I don't know if this episode's coming out in March, but like that's why I said it like that. But yeah, we celebrate our 5th anniversary. It does exactly what it says in the tin. We are a podcast that looks at 90s action movies, some from big blockbusters to direct to video, actioners, from the absolute best action cinema has to give you to the worst, and everything kind of in between. So that's that one. And then, like I said earlier, which you may have forgotten because this podcast has gone long, as it always does. My last podcast is Bloody Sam, a Sam Peckinpah fan podcast, which I started recently. There is currently 3 episodes available. And yeah, that podcast is kind of going to be a mini series. I'm just going to cover the 14 theatrically released Peckinpah feature films, from Deadly Companions, which was his first film, right through to the Osterman Weekend, which was his last film that came out like a year before he died. So covering the full spectrum of Peckinpah. So I'm really enjoying doing that, and I've seen a bunch of his films, but I've not seen all of his films previously. So I'm learning along with the listeners. That's a lot of fun. So I hope people are interested in one of those 3 things, and maybe come along and join us and become a follower on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yes, definitely. In the podcast description, we'll have those mentioned in there as well. And so in terms of this episode, I think I'm planning for March 31st, which actually would be April 1st, your time. So yes, in your case, the movie wouldn't be, or the episode wouldn't be out in March, but for some in America, so I guess actually most of the world, when I post, most of the world, the episode doesn't come out until the next day, their time. So I guess that's what it'd be. But still, technically, right? March is your anniversary, so at least we can say that. And all night is action all the time. Ton of fun. I think going through the movies of 1996 is really interesting for me because I was 17 that year, so I'm starting to remember them better. Like when you guys were just starting out, and it was the earlier part of the 90s. I was like 93 or something like that. It's like I was 14. I remember some of these, but some of these I saw them later, but now it's like, no, I can fully remember when they came out, all of those kinds of things. So it's really interesting going through those movies.
Nice. Well, we got lots of things coming up, a real mixture of things. And we do, obviously most of the films we cover are kind of Hollywood films, but we occasionally cover some other films in April. No, not in April. In May, we'll be covering a Hong Kong film called The Stunt Woman, and so sometimes we dive into Hong Kong stuff. Obviously we have our regular. If people do listen to the podcast, they'll know that we have our regular start to the year, which is January, where we celebrate all things Jackie Chan. So we always have a Hong Kong movie to start the year. But we dive into other bits and pieces, and we're looking to do that more, kind of diversify a bit as well, and kind of have a mixture of occasionally throwing in a European one or an Asian one, or everything's very kind of male centric in the action world, so occasionally throwing in a female led action movie, which we did in February, where we covered the Anna Nicole Smith Die Hard knockoff Skyscraper, which is not a good film at all, but it's very entertaining.
I have a soft spot for so Skyscraper is in my top 5 PM entertainment movies. I love that movie. I totally get what you're saying. I don't know if you've ever seen on YouTube. There's an outtakes reel.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And we find out that the reason why she's a helicopter pilot is that they can feed her lines through her headset.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Like the outtakes, like there's a listener on the other end of this being like, "Will this episode ever end?" But like the last thing I'll say, I'll promise I'll shut up
Oh, it's
after
okay. It's
this.
all right.
Yeah, is that like that outtake reel is like you go on a real journey with that outtake reel because obviously she's suffering from drug addiction problems, and like initially it starts funny of being like, "Oh, you're feeding her lines and da da da," but as it goes on, it just becomes like a sad document of like a drug addict of just being like, "Oh, she looks like she's quite out of it," and this is quite. It just becomes like it goes from being like look at her, like it goes from just being like entertaining to being like, "Oh, this is." I feel sad about watching this. I hope she's, you just kind of feel like, oh, I hope obviously, sadly, she didn't get the care she needed, but I think you come away from it by the end of the video, I think you come away with it being like, oh, I wish she got some good help. I just feel like you kind of go on a journey with that video.
No, I totally agree. I think for me, what it really showed too, beyond that, that what she was going through was like the work that the PM Entertainment did, the people involved, whether it's the stunt people or the camera people or whatever, to get that movie over the goal line. And I wonder if they didn't realize, what she was dealing with when they agreed to make the movie. Because they made 2 movies with her. And I wonder if they thought, okay, we're getting Anna Nicole Smith. This is going to be great. And then she's on set, and it's like, oh, okay, well, all right, we got to figure this out now, And that's kind of what the reel is. It's a lot of them trying to figure it out. But to your point, we also get the sense that she was dealing with addiction, and that part of it, to your point, like it's a shame that she didn't get the help that she needed because it was a really sad story there.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we're going to leave it on that note. I guess, but Scott, thank you for coming on. This was a ton of fun. Great to get back on the Seagal train.
Yes, great as always, and I can't wait for our next stop off on Urban Justice.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Same. I'm excited to see that one as well. Well, thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.
Direct